Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Black Magic. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present what if Fawkes chose Harry as his true master at age 2 and raised him in a phoenix sanctuary. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, The Phoenix Choice. Fawkes had watched the small boy for 3 nights straight. Perched invisibly in the large oak tree outside number 4 Privet Drive, the magnificent phoenix observed with growing anger as the toddler was shoved into a cupboard beneath the stairs, his cries ignored while the larger, rounder child was coddled and praised for throwing food across the kitchen. Something was very wrong here. Fawkes could sense it in his fiery bones. This child, this special child with the lightning mark, radiated magic unlike any the phoenix had encountered in his centuries of existence. Not just ordinary wizarding potential, but something wild and ancient that called to Fawkes like a song he'd forgotten he knew. On the 4th night, when the fat man with the purple face slapped the toddler for accidentally knocking over a vase, Fawkes made his decision. Dumbledore would not approve. But Fawkes hadn't survived for centuries by blindly following anyone's will, not even his chosen companions. The phoenix waited until the house fell silent, all its occupants asleep. Then he flamed directly into the cramped cupboard where little Harry Potter lay whimpering on a thin mattress, his cheek still red from his uncle's hand. The brilliant flash of fire illuminated the tiny space. Harry didn't cry out in fear as most children would. Instead, his enormous green eyes widened in wonder, and he reached out one chubby hand toward the magnificent bird. "Pretty," he whispered. Fawkes trilled softly, the sound barely audible but filled with magic that immediately soothed the child's pain and dried his tears. The phoenix lowered his magnificent head, allowing the toddler to stroke his crimson feathers. "Friend?" Harry asked, his voice small but hopeful. Fawkes trilled again in confirmation, then carefully gripped the boy's pajamas with his talons. He needed the child to understand. "We go?" Harry asked, showing surprising comprehension for a child not yet 3. Fawkes bobbed his head. Yes. They would go. K. Harry grabbed his only possession, a tattered blanket, and wrapped his arms around the phoenix's neck with complete trust. Fawkes spread his magnificent wings as far as the cramped space allowed and summoned his flame. In a flash of golden fire, the cupboard under the stairs at number 4 Privet Drive stood empty, its former occupant gone without a trace. Elara Flammel nearly dropped her teacup when a burst of phoenix fire erupted in the middle of her kitchen. Her granduncle Nicholas had warned her that running the phoenix sanctuary would bring surprises, but nothing had prepared her for finding Dumbledore's phoenix in her kitchen at midnight, with a human toddler clutching its neck. "Great Merlin's ghost!" she exclaimed, rushing forward as the child slid from the bird's back onto her stone floor. "Fawkes! What have you done?" The phoenix trilled imperiously, spreading his wings over the small boy in a clearly protective gesture. "Is that?" Elara knelt down, brushing the child's unruly black hair aside to reveal the lightning-shaped scar. "Harry Potter. You've taken Harry Potter." Fawkes bobbed his head once, his intelligent eyes challenging her to object. The boy, Harry, looked around the kitchen with curious eyes that showed no fear, only wonder at the strange new place. "Bird house?" he asked. Despite the severity of the situation, Elara felt her lips twitch. "Something like that, little one." She turned her attention back to the phoenix. "Fawkes, Dumbledore placed him with his family for protection." The blood wards. Fawkes let out a sharp, angry cry, and flames briefly danced along his wings. He leaned forward and pressed his head against Harry's cheek, where a fading red mark was still visible. Elara's expression hardened as understanding dawned. "They hurt him." She looked more closely at the thin child in ragged pajamas 2 sizes too large. "Neglected him, at the very least." Fawkes trilled again, softer this time. "You've chosen him, haven't you?" Elara whispered, or replacing shock. "A phoenix choosing a human companion so young, it hasn't happened in centuries." Harry, seemingly bored with their exchange, wandered toward the kitchen table where he spotted a plate of biscuits. "Hungry," he announced, reaching for one but stopping himself, looking back with uncertainty. "Go ahead, Harry," Elara said gently. The boy's hesitation spoke volumes about his treatment at the Dursleys. While Harry munched on the biscuit, Elara knelt before Fawkes. "If he stays here, Dumbledore will come looking. He believes the boy must live with his mother's blood." Fawkes made a dismissive sound and fluffed his feathers. "You think Phoenix magic can provide better protection?" Elara raised an eyebrow. "That's not without precedent, I suppose. The ancient texts mention Phoenix guardianship as one of the most powerful protections." The magnificent bird bobbed his head again, then flew to land beside Harry, carefully grooming the child's messy hair with his beak. Harry giggled, reaching up to pet the phoenix. "My friend," he declared proudly. Elara watched them together, her mind racing. As the head caretaker of the International Phoenix Sanctuary, she was bound by sacred oaths to respect Phoenix choices. If Fawkes had truly chosen Harry as his human companion, she had no right to interfere. "This will cause an uproar," she muttered, already imagining Dumbledore's reaction. Not to mention the Ministry of Magic, who would undoubtedly demand access to the boy who lived. But looking at the small boy now happily sharing his biscuit with Fawkes, she knew what her decision must be. The sanctuary had protected Phoenix secrets for centuries. It could protect Harry Potter too. "Well then," she said, straightening her robes and smiling at the odd pair. "Welcome to the Phoenix Sanctuary, Harry Potter." Albus Dumbledore arrived exactly 28 hours after Harry's disappearance, his usually twinkling eyes grave with concern. Arabella Figg had alerted him when she noticed no sign of the child during her regular discreet observation of the Dursley household. "Elara," he greeted the woman awaiting him at the sanctuary's entrance, his tone polite but tense. "I believe we have a matter to discuss." "Headmaster," she replied coolly. At 47, Elara had the distinctive flannel features, auburn hair streaked with silver, sharp blue eyes, and an expression of someone who had seen too much to be easily impressed. "I've been expecting you." "Harry Potter has disappeared from his aunt and uncle's home," Dumbledore said without preamble. "The protective wards have collapsed completely." "Has he?" Elara responded mildly. "How concerning." A flash of irritation crossed Dumbledore's face. "I think we both know Fawkes brought him here." As if summoned by his name, the phoenix appeared in a burst of flame, landing on a perch beside the entrance. He regarded Dumbledore with an unrepentant stare. "Your familiar has made a choice, Headmaster," Elara said, her voice taking on the formal cadence used for sanctuary matters. "The Covenant of Ashes recognizes and protects that choice." Dumbledore's expression shifted subtly. The Covenant of Ashes, the ancient magical agreement that governed the relationship between phoenixes and wizards, was not something he could easily dismiss. "Fawkes is my companion, not the boy's," he countered. Elara shook her head. "He has chosen dual companionship, rare but not unprecedented. The signs are unmistakable." "Show me," Dumbledore demanded. With a nod, Elara led him through the sanctuary's outer gardens toward the inner compound. The Phoenix Sanctuary occupied a hidden valley in the Welsh mountains, unplottable and protected by magic far older than Hogwarts itself. Dozens of phoenixes of varying colors and subspecies made their home here, either permanently or during various phases of their burning cycles. They found Harry in what the sanctuary staff called the Nursery Hollow, a sunlit grotto where younger phoenixes were tended. The small boy sat on a warm stone, surrounded by 3 phoenix fledglings who seemed utterly fascinated with him. As Dumbledore watched, Harry gently stroked the head of a small golden phoenix while murmuring to it. "Pretty birdie sick," they heard him ask with childish concern. The fledgling, clearly approaching its first burning, trilled weakly. Harry nodded as if he understood perfectly. "Sakai. You be reborn. Like stories." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "He's been here just over a day," and he already understands the phoenix life cycle. He doesn't just understand it, Elara said quietly. He senses it. Watch. As they observed, the golden fledgling suddenly burst into flames. Most adult wizards would have leapt back in alarm, but Harry merely scooted back slightly, watching with solemn fascination as the bird was consumed. When only ashes remained on the warm stone, the boy leaned forward and gently blew on them. "Come back now," he whispered. To Dumbledore's astonishment, the ashes stirred immediately, far faster than the usual phoenix rebirth, and a tiny, newborn phoenix head poked out, trilling weakly. The other fledglings joined in, creating a welcoming chorus. Harry beamed. "Told you. All better now." "That's..." Dumbledore trailed off, genuinely shocked. "The speed of that rebirth is unprecedented." "He accelerated it somehow," Elara confirmed. "The caretakers witnessed it yesterday too, with another fledgling. Something in his magic resonates with theirs." Fawkes, who had followed them, flew to land beside Harry. The boy looked up with a bright smile. "Fawkes." Baby bird came back. He pointed proudly to the newborn phoenix struggling out of the ashes. "Harry," Dumbledore called gently. The boy turned, noticing the adults for the first time. His smile faltered slightly at the sight of the unfamiliar old man with the long beard. "Hello, Harry," Dumbledore said, approaching slowly. "Do you remember me? I visited you when you were very small." Harry shook his head, edging closer to Fawkes. "My name is Professor Dumbledore. I'm a friend." Harry studied him suspiciously. "You take me back to mean people." Dumbledore stopped, his expression troubled. "Mean people, Harry? Uncle Vernon and Aunt Tunia. They don't like Harry." His small face scrunched in distress. "Cupboard dark. Dudley hits. No food when magic happens." Dumbledore closed his eyes briefly, pain flashing across his features. When he opened them, he knelt to Harry's level. "Did magic happen often, Harry?" The boy nodded. "When scared or hungry. Lights come. Things float." He demonstrated by holding out his hand, where a small flame danced across his palm, not burning him, but flickering with golden light reminiscent of phoenix fire. "Merlin's beard," Dumbledore breathed, watching the display of wandless magic from a child not yet 3. "His magical development is extraordinary," Elara finished. "And likely to become more so in this environment." Dumbledore stood, his expression conflicted. The blood protection from his mother's sacrifice was being actively undermined by their treatment of him, Elara cut in sharply. "You can't expect protective magic based on love to flourish in an environment of neglect and fear." "Phoenix protection is different," Dumbledore acknowledged, watching as Fawkes gently nuzzled Harry's cheek. "Ancient. Powerful in its own way." "Fawkes has chosen," Elara said simply. "Will you challenge that choice?" For a long moment, Dumbledore was silent, the weight of decision heavy in his eyes. Finally, he sighed. "No. The covenant must be respected." Elara nodded, relief evident in her posture. "However," Dumbledore continued, "I have conditions. I must have regular access to the boy. His destiny is complicated." "The prophecy," Elara said. As keeper of the sanctuary's ancient records, she was one of the few outside the Order of the Phoenix who knew of its existence. "Yes. Voldemort will return someday. Harry must be prepared." "We'll prepare him," Elara promised. "But in our way, not yours, Headmaster. He'll grow up knowing love and belonging, not as a weapon being readied for war." Dumbledore's eyes flashed. "I never intended, perhaps not consciously," she interrupted. "But I know how strategically you think. This boy is a child first, a prophesied savior second." After another long moment, Dumbledore nodded. "Very well. I propose quarterly visits, with emergency access if needed." We will need to establish additional protections since the blood wards are now void. Agreed. And he will attend Hogwarts when the time comes? Of course. That part of his journey remains essential. As they negotiated the details, Harry had lost interest in their adult conversation. He was now attempting to feed the newborn phoenix tiny pieces of fruit from a bowl that one of the sanctuary caretakers had provided. Watching him, Dumbledore's expression softened. Perhaps Fawkes sees something in him that I missed. Phoenix judgment has proven wiser than mine in the past. This is where he belongs, Elara said firmly. The sanctuary will be his home, and its residents his family. Dumbledore looked around at the phoenixes scattered throughout the grotto, the ancient magic palpable in the air, and found he couldn't disagree. For better or worse, Harry Potter's path had changed. Again, 8-year-old Harry demanded, his green eyes bright with determination despite the sweat dripping down his face. Thorn Nightshade, the sanctuary's defense master and former Auror, raised a skeptical eyebrow. You've been at it for 3 hours, kid. Even phoenixes rest sometimes. One more, Harry insisted, shifting his stance on the training platform. I almost had it last time. Thorn sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. Fine. One more. Focus on channeling the heat through your core, not just your hands. Harry nodded, closing his eyes. At 8, he was small for his age but wiry and quick, his perpetually messy black hair contrasting with the sanctuary-made training clothes in shades of red and gold. The lightning scar on his forehead seemed to shimmer slightly as he concentrated. Around the training platform, small flames sprang to life in a perfect circle. Unlike normal fire, these flames glowed with an inner golden light and didn't consume their wicks. Good, Thorn encouraged. Now, remember, Phoenix fire responds to intent and emotion, not just will. Harry's eyes snapped open, now reflecting golden flecks amid the green. With a swift, circular motion of his arms, he drew the flames inward, gathering them into a swirling ball of golden fire that hovered between his palms. Yes. Thorn called. Now shape it. Harry's face scrunched in concentration as he molded the fire, stretching and compressing it until it took the form of a small, fiery stag that pranced around the platform. You did it. Thorn broke into a rare grin. That's the first clear manifestation you've. The fiery stag suddenly exploded in a shower of golden sparks, the backlash knocking Harry off his feet. He landed hard on his backside, looking dazed but grinning broadly despite his failure. Did you see it? It was a stag. Just like in my dreams. Thorn helped him up, brushing ash from the boy's shoulders. Clear as day. Your father's animagus form, if the stories are true. Harry beamed, then swayed slightly from magical exhaustion. And that's definitely enough for today, Thorn declared, catching Harry's elbow to steady him. Elara will have my hide if I let you drain your core again. But I'm not tired, Harry protested unconvincingly, even as he stifled a yawn. Sure you're not. Come on, Phoenix boy. Food, then rest. As they walked from the training area toward the main compound, Harry's faithful companion swooped down to join them. Pip had been just a fledgling when Harry arrived at the sanctuary 6 years ago, and the young gold and blue phoenix had attached himself to the boy immediately. Hey, Pip. I made fire shapes again. Harry announced proudly, reaching up to stroke the phoenix's glossy feathers. Pip trilled congratulations, landing on Harry's shoulder with practiced ease. Though not officially bonded like Harry and Fawkes, the two shared a deep connection, with Pip often acting as Harry's self-appointed guardian when Fawkes was away with Dumbledore. Go wash up, Thorn instructed as they reached the dining hall. You smell like burnt toast. Harry stuck out his tongue but complied, heading for the washing station with Pip still perched on his shoulder. Elara approached Thorn, having watched the end of the training session from the hall entrance. His control is improving, she observed. Faster than I expected, Thorn admitted. He's manifesting elemental shapes now. Started with simple balls of fire, then progressed to a fully formed stag within an hour. A stag? Elara's eyebrows rose. Interesting. He's never seen pictures of his father's animagus form. The phoenixes are influencing his magic in ways we still don't fully understand, Thorn said. He doesn't cast spells like ordinary wizards. It's all intent and emotion with him. Dumbledore will want to know. He's arriving tomorrow for his quarterly visit. Thorn's expression darkened slightly. Though he respected the Hogwarts headmaster, he remained wary of Dumbledore's long-term plans for Harry. The old man's going to start pushing harder for combat training. You know that, right? Every time he visits, he drops not-so-subtle hints about preparing Harry for what's coming. And we'll continue to educate Harry our way, Elara said firmly. Yes, he needs to know how to defend himself, but not at the expense of his childhood. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Kai Chen, the sanctuary's resident expert on wand lore and magical cores. The soft-spoken Chinese wizard had joined their small community 2 years earlier after hearing rumors of Harry's unusual magical development. The boy's aura is evolving again, Kai announced without preamble. I observed his training from the Eastern Ridge. The Phoenix resonance is growing stronger. Is that dangerous? Elara asked, concern coloring her voice. Kai shook his head. Not dangerous, but unprecedented. His magical core is developing hybrid characteristics, part human wizard, part phoenix. The implications for his future magical abilities are significant. Will he be able to use a wand normally when the time comes? Thorn asked. Hogwarts education still relies on wand work. A wand will work, but it may constrain him rather than enhance his abilities, Kai replied. His natural magic already operates on principles closer to phoenix magic than human casting. Elara sighed. Another complication for Dumbledore to worry about. Harry returned then, his face and hands washed but his hair still wild and now damp. He slid onto the bench beside Thorn and reached eagerly for the bread. Slow down, Elara chided gently. The food isn't going anywhere. Sorry, Harry mumbled through a mouthful. Starving. Magical exertion increases metabolism, Kai observed with academic interest. Particularly interesting in your case, given the Phoenix influence. Harry rolled his eyes good-naturedly. Everything was particularly interesting to Kai. Professor Dumbledore is visiting tomorrow, Elara informed Harry. He'll want to see your progress. Harry nodded, his expression brightening. Despite the occasional tension between his guardians and the headmaster, Harry genuinely liked Dumbledore's visits. The old wizard always brought fascinating stories and small magical trinkets. Can I show him the fire stag? He asked eagerly. If you're rested enough, Thorn said. No pushing your core 2 days in a row. Fawkes will probably come too, Elara added. Though Fawkes had chosen Harry as his secondary companion, the Phoenix still spent much of his time with Dumbledore, particularly during the school year. His visits to the sanctuary were always cause for celebration among the resident Phoenixes, who treated the ancient bird with evident respect. Will he stay longer this time? Harry asked hopefully. That depends on Hogwarts business, Elara replied diplomatically. After dinner, Harry spent a quiet hour in the sanctuary's library with Marika, the elderly witch who served as both librarian and historian. Unlike most magical children his age, Harry had developed a genuine love of reading, particularly histories and tales of magical creatures. I found something about your parents, Marika announced, setting a worn leather photo album on the table. Harry's head snapped up from the text on Phoenix migration patterns he'd been studying. Really? Where did you get it? Dumbledore sent it ahead for his visit tomorrow, but I don't see why you can't have a peek tonight. With reverential care, Harry opened the album. Though he had seen a few photos of his parents before, each new image was precious. This album contained pictures he'd never seen, his mother and father at Hogwarts, their wedding day, and finally, a photo of them holding him as an infant, all three laughing as baby Harry reached for the camera. They loved you very much, Marika said softly, watching as Harry traced his finger over his parents' faces. I know, Harry whispered. And he did know, not from memory, but from the stories his sanctuary family had shared, and from the protective magic his mother had left within him, which the phoenixes sometimes sang to during their most magical ceremonies. Later that night, as Harry lay in bed with Pip nestled on a perch nearby, he thought about his unusual life. He knew other children his age lived differently, in houses with parents, going to school, playing normal games. Sometimes he wondered what that would be like. But then he remembered soaring through the sky on Fawkes's back, feeling the thrill of phoenix fire warming his palms, and hearing the ancient songs that made magic shimmer in the air around him. No other kid got to experience those things. Harry drifted to sleep thinking about what he might show Dumbledore tomorrow, unaware that forces beyond the sanctuary's peaceful boundaries were already in motion. Dumbledore's arrival the next morning came earlier than expected, and under troubling circumstances. Harry was practicing his levitation skills in the Eastern Garden, floating stones in complex patterns under Kai's supervision, when a brilliant flash of phoenix fire announced the headmaster's appearance. One look at Dumbledore's face told Harry this wasn't a routine visit. The old wizard's normally twinkling eyes were serious, his posture tense. Fawkes, perched on his shoulder, looked equally alert. Headmaster, Kai greeted with a respectful bow. We weren't expecting you until afternoon. Circumstances have changed, Dumbledore replied grimly. Where is Alara? Council chamber, Harry piped up. She's meeting with the American delegation about crossbreeding regulations. Dumbledore's eyes softened slightly when they fell on Harry. Hello, my boy. You've grown since March. Harry grinned. 2 whole inches. Thorn's been teaching me dueling stances, and Kai says my magical core is stabilizing. Wonderful progress, Dumbledore said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Kai, would you please fetch Alara and Thorn? I need to speak with them urgently. Recognizing the dismissal, Harry frowned. Is something wrong? Is it about me? Dumbledore hesitated. Not directly, but, I'm not a baby, Harry interrupted, his chin lifting stubbornly. If it's about Voldemort, I should know. The name didn't cause Harry the fear it might in other children. The sanctuary hadn't shielded him from the truth about his parents' murderer or the prophecy that connected them. They had merely presented the information age-appropriately, ensuring Harry understood without being traumatized. Dumbledore exchanged a look with Fawkes, who trilled softly. Whatever silent communication passed between them seemed to resolve the headmaster's indecision. Very well. Come with us to the council chamber. But remember that the final decisions rest with your guardians. Minutes later, the key sanctuary personnel gathered around the circular stone table that had served as their meeting place for centuries. Fawkes took a perch near Harry, while Dumbledore stood to address the group. There has been a breach in the enchantments surrounding Azkaban prison, he announced without preamble. 3 Death Eaters have escaped. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Which ones? Thorn demanded, his hand unconsciously moving to the wand holster at his hip. Augustus Rookwood, Antonin Dolohov, and Bellatrix Lestrange. Alara inhaled sharply. Lestrange? But her security was the highest level. Precisely why this escape is so concerning, Dumbledore said gravely. The method used suggests inside help, possibly from someone with knowledge of Azkaban's oldest enchantments. What does this have to do with the sanctuary? Kai asked, though the way his eyes flickered toward Harry suggested he already suspected the answer. Bellatrix was one of Voldemort's most fanatical followers, Dumbledore explained. And she was privy to parts of the prophecy concerning Harry. My sources indicate the escapees are seeking information on Harry's whereabouts. Harry felt a chill despite the warm summer air. He knew about Bellatrix Lestrange from the stories, the witch who had tortured Neville Longbottom's parents into insanity. The sanctuary is unplottable, Alara said firmly. And protected by magics older than Azkaban itself. I don't doubt your protections, Dumbledore acknowledged. But these are not ordinary adversaries. Rookwood was an unspeakable before his allegiance to Voldemort was discovered. He has knowledge of magical detection methods that could potentially locate areas of concentrated phoenix magic. Thorn leaned forward. You're suggesting they could find the general location, if not the specific coordinates. It's possible, Dumbledore confirmed. Which is why I propose temporary additional protections, a modified Fidelius charm with myself as secret keeper, layered over your existing wards. A murmur ran through the gathered caretakers. The sanctuary had always maintained its independence from outside magical authorities, including Dumbledore. Accepting his protection would establish a precedent. We should consider all options, Elara said diplomatically. The safety of both Harry and our phoenixes must come first. I'm not afraid, Harry spoke up, drawing all eyes to him. The phoenixes will protect us if anyone comes. Dumbledore smiled gently. Your courage does you credit, Harry. But even phoenixes can be overwhelmed by sufficient dark magic. There's something you're not telling us, Thorn said, eyes narrowed. What else has happened? Dumbledore hesitated, then sighed. 3 days ago, the Norwegian Phoenix Haven was attacked. The human caretakers were stunned, and one phoenix was taken, a rare black and silver subspecies from the Arctic Circle. Gasps and exclamations of horror filled the chamber. The theft of a phoenix was almost unheard of. The birds would typically flame away from danger or die fighting rather than be captured. How is that possible? Kai demanded. Phoenixes cannot be contained against their will. Ancient dark magic, Dumbledore replied grimly. The same magic Voldemort researched extensively. I believe Bellatrix is attempting to recreate some of her master's unfinished work that may require both Phoenix components and access to Harry. The implications hung heavy in the air. Harry felt Fawkes shift closer, the phoenix's warm wing brushing against his shoulder in a protective gesture. We need time to discuss this, Elara finally said. Headmaster, would you permit us a private council? Dumbledore nodded. Of course. I'll await your decision in the guest quarters. He paused at the chamber entrance. I should mention, I've taken the liberty of alerting certain order members to be prepared for emergency response, should it become necessary. After he departed, a heated debate erupted among the sanctuary staff. Opinions were divided between accepting Dumbledore's offered protection and enhancing their own formidable defenses independently. Harry listened intently, understanding more than the adults perhaps realized. While they debated, he noticed Fawkes growing increasingly agitated, the phoenix's feathers ruffling as he stared toward the eastern boundary of the sanctuary. Something's wrong, Harry said suddenly, interrupting Thorn mid-sentence. Fawkes senses something. All eyes turned to the phoenix, who let out a soft, warning trill. At that same moment, a shimmering lynx Patronus leapt through the wall of the chamber. Boundary wards breached on eastern perimeter, came Dumbledore's voice from the silver apparition. Phoenix alarm triggered. Hostiles approaching through the outer forest. The warning had barely faded when a second magical message arrived, this one in the form of a fiery symbol that materialized above the table, a distress signal from the phoenixes patrolling the sanctuary's edges. They're already here, Thorn growled, drawing his wand. Battle stations. The sanctuary erupted into coordinated action. While some caretakers rushed to secure the youngest phoenixes in the protected inner sanctum, others moved to defensive positions. Elara knelt before Harry. Go with Marika to the emergency shelter, she instructed firmly. Harry shook his head. I can help. My phoenix fire is not fully under control, she cut him off. Please, Harry. We can't defend the sanctuary and worry about you simultaneously. Reluctantly, Harry allowed himself to be led toward the hidden shelter beneath the main compound. Fawkes followed, clearly intending to stay with him. But as they passed through the central courtyard, a massive explosion rocked the eastern boundary, and the sky filled with ominous black smoke that formed into a gigantic skull with a snake protruding from its mouth, the Dark Mark. There through the outer wards, someone shouted. Harry heard maniacal laughter carrying across the valley, followed by streaks of sickly green light, killing curses. Thorn and 3 other defenders rushed toward the intrusion, shields raised. "Hurry!" Marika urged, tugging Harry's arm. But Harry had frozen in place, his eyes fixed on a horrifying sight. Near the breach, a fledgling phoenix had been caught in some kind of dark magical net. The young bird thrashed desperately, unable to flame away, its cries of distress triggering something primal in Harry's chest. Without conscious thought, Harry broke free from Marika's grasp and ran toward the captured phoenix, ignoring the shouts behind him. Fawkes streaked overhead, screeching in alarm. Harry ducked behind a stone outcropping as spellfire intensified ahead. Through a gap in the rocks, he could see 3 black-robed figures advancing on the sanctuary defenders. Their leader, a wild-haired witch with heavily hooded eyes, cackled as she deflected Thorn's stunning spells with contemptuous ease. "Where is the Potter brat?" she shrieked. "Bring him out, or we'll take your precious birds one by one." Harry recognized her from descriptions, Bellatrix Lestrange. Beside her, a tall, thin man was controlling the dark net around the fledgling phoenix with complex wand movements, while the third intruder maintained a powerful shield charm. Harry felt something hot and fierce rise in his chest. The phoenix magic that had been nurtured in him for years responded to his surge of protective rage. Without thinking about the danger, he stepped out from behind the rocks. "Let it go," he shouted, his voice carrying across the battlefield with unexpected resonance. All combatants froze momentarily, startled by the child's appearance. Bellatrix's face split into a manic grin. "Baby Potter," she cooed in a sickening baby voice. "Come to play with Bella." "Harry, run!" Thorn yelled, redoubling his attack on the Death Eater's shields. But Harry stood his ground. He felt Fawkes land on his shoulder, the phoenix's warmth flowing into him, merging with his own magic until his skin seemed to glow from within. "Last chance," Harry warned, his voice eerily calm despite his racing heart. "Release the phoenix and leave." Bellatrix laughed. "The child thinks he can command us." Crucio. The torture curse streaked toward Harry, but never reached him. Fawkes launched from his shoulder in a burst of flame, intercepting the spell with his body. Instead of being harmed, the phoenix absorbed the dark magic, his feathers glowing brighter as he converted it through some ancient phoenix alchemy. That was all Harry needed to see. The weeks of training with Thorn, the years of living among phoenixes, and his own innate magical gifts all coalesced in this moment of desperate need. He raised both hands, palms outward, and released the fire building inside him. Unlike his practice sessions where he struggled to maintain control, this time the phoenix fire responded perfectly to his intent. Golden flames erupted from his hands in a concentrated wave that split into 3 precise streams, each targeting one of the Death Eaters. Rookwood, caught by surprise, lost control of the dark net as golden fire encircled him, not burning his flesh but searing through the dark magic he was channeling. The net dissipated, freeing the fledgling phoenix, which immediately burst into protective flames. Dolohov managed to deflect part of Harry's attack with a hasty shield, but the phoenix fire simply curved around it, striking him from behind and binding his arms to his sides in golden restraints. Bellatrix, however, was faster. She slashed her wand in a complex pattern, conjuring a shield of writhing black energy that absorbed Harry's fire. "Impressive, Baby Potter. The Dark Lord will be so interested to learn of your little tricks." She countered with a barrage of dark curses that Harry had no defense against. But before they could reach him, Dumbledore appeared in a flash of phoenix fire, Fawkes delivering him directly to the battlefield. With a powerful sweep of the Elder Wand, he neutralized Bellatrix's attack and advanced on the witch with uncharacteristic ferocity. "You should not have come here, Bellatrix," Dumbledore said, his usual gentle demeanor replaced by cold fury. "This sanctuary is protected by magics far older than your dark arts." Bellatrix's confident sneer faltered slightly as she felt the ancient power rising around them. The sanctuary itself was responding to the threat, with every phoenix in the valley now airborne, creating a swirling vortex of fire above the battle. "The boy comes with us," she shrieked, launching another attack. Dumbledore deflected it easily. "I think not." While the headmaster engaged Bellatrix, Harry noticed Rookwood reaching for something in his robes, a small, dark object that pulsed with malevolent energy. Acting on instinct, Harry directed another surge of phoenix fire at the object just as Rookwood activated it. The resulting explosion knocked everyone off their feet. When the dust cleared, Rookwood lay unconscious, the dark artifact destroyed. Dolohov remained bound in Harry's magical restraints, but Bellatrix had used the distraction to release him and create a swirling portal of dark energy. "This isn't over," she screamed as she and Dolohov backed toward the portal. "The Dark Lord will rise again, and when he does, he'll remember who protected his secrets." Her maddened eyes fixed on Harry. "And he'll be very interested in you, baby Potter. Very interested indeed." Before anyone could stop them, the two Death Eaters vanished through the portal, which collapsed behind them with an ominous thunderclap. Only Rookwood remained, unconscious and bound. In the sudden silence, Harry became aware of the sanctuary caretakers and Dumbledore all staring at him in various states of shock. The golden fire still dancing around his hands slowly faded as his adrenaline ebbed, leaving him swaying with sudden exhaustion. Thorn reached him first, catching Harry as his knees buckled. "That," the former Auror said with gruff pride, "was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen. Possibly both." "The fledgling," Harry murmured, fighting to stay conscious. "Is it okay?" "Safe, thanks to you," Elara assured him, kneeling beside them. Her expert eyes assessed Harry's condition. "Magical exhaustion, but no permanent damage. He needs rest and chocolate." Dumbledore approached, his expression a complex mixture of concern, pride, and something else, calculation, perhaps. "The Phoenix Fire," he said quietly. "I've never seen a human channel it with such precision. Not even Flamel in his prime could direct it against specific targets." "Harry's connection to Phoenix magic has always been unique," Elara replied, a protective edge to her voice. "As we've told you." "Indeed." Dumbledore watched as the rescued fledgling Phoenix fluttered down to land beside Harry, trilling gratitude. "Today has confirmed what I suspected. His mother's sacrifice created a foundation that the Phoenix magic has built upon. The protection is no longer just passive resistance to dark magic, but an active force he can direct." Harry, despite his exhaustion, caught the significance of Dumbledore's words. "Is that why Voldemort wants me? Because of this power?" A shadow passed over Dumbledore's face. "That is one reason among many, my boy. But today has shown that you have protectors, both human and Phoenix, who will not surrender you to darkness." As if to emphasize his point, every Phoenix in the valley began to sing in unison, a powerful, magical chorus that made the air itself vibrate with ancient power. The melody seemed to strengthen the sanctuary's damaged wards, golden light spreading outward to repair the breaches. "The sanctuary recognizes your role in its defense," Kai explained, seeing Harry's wonder at the Phoenix's response. "You are now formally part of its magic, not merely a resident." Thorn helped Harry to his feet. "Come on, Phoenix boy. Let's get you inside before you fall over." As they made their way back to the main compound, Harry's fatigue was balanced by a new sense of belonging. He had protected his home and its Phoenixes, his family. The fact that dark wizards sought him was frightening, but not as terrifying as it might have been to a child raised differently. After all, Harry Potter wasn't just the boy who lived anymore. He was the Phoenix's chosen, with fire in his blood and the loyalty of the most magical creatures in the wizarding world. Voldemort and his followers might come again, but Harry would be ready, and he wouldn't face them alone. Chapter 2, Flames of Discovery. The letter arrived on Harry's 11th birthday, carried not by Owl but by Fawkes himself. The magnificent Phoenix soared through the open window of the dining hall where the sanctuary residents had gathered to celebrate, dropping the heavy parchment envelope directly into Harry's bowl of porridge. "Nice aim," Harry laughed, fishing out the soggy envelope. Excited whispers broke out around the table as everyone recognized the distinctive Hogwarts seal. Well, go on then, Thorn urged, barely concealing his own excitement. Read it. Harry broke the wax seal and unfolded the parchment, clearing his throat dramatically. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Cheers erupted around the table. Though everyone had known the letter would come eventually, seeing it made Harry's future education official. Pip, now a fully mature phoenix with brilliant gold and sapphire plumage, trilled a congratulatory melody from his perch near the ceiling. Harry continued reading, his grin widening at the list of required books and supplies. First years are not allowed their own broomsticks, he finished with a snort. Like that's gonna stop me. It absolutely will stop you, Elara corrected firmly, though her eyes twinkled with amusement. You'll follow the rules like any other student, Harry James Potter. Most other students can't ride air currents without a broom, Harry pointed out. And you won't be doing that either, Thorn added. Not unless you want to spend your first term explaining to the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes why children across Britain are jumping off towers trying to fly like Harry Potter. Harry sighed dramatically, but he couldn't maintain the pretense of disappointment. He was too excited. After years of hearing stories about Hogwarts from Dumbledore and the sanctuary staff, he would finally experience it himself. When can we go to Diagon Alley? He asked eagerly. I need a wand. And books. And an owl. He paused, glancing guiltily at Pip. Not that I don't love you, but owls are better for carrying regular mail. Pip fluffed his feathers in mock offense. We'll go tomorrow, Elara decided. Dumbledore has arranged for Hagrid to meet us at the Leaky Cauldron. He thinks having a Hogwarts representative along will help manage the attention you're likely to receive. Harry's excitement dimmed slightly. Though he understood his unusual status in the wizarding world, he'd been largely sheltered from it within the sanctuary. The few times he'd ventured into wizarding villages with his guardians, people had stared and whispered. Some had even tried to touch his scar or grab pieces of his clothing as souvenirs. Will it be bad? He asked quietly. Kai, who had been silently observing the celebration, spoke up. It will be intense. But remember what we've practiced. Center your magic, maintain your shields, and don't allow others' emotions to overwhelm your own. Harry nodded, grateful for the reminder. His phoenix-influenced magic made him unusually sensitive to others' emotional states, a gift in the sanctuary, but potentially overwhelming in crowds. Can I bring Pip? He asked hopefully. The adults exchanged glances. Taking a phoenix to Diagon Alley would only increase the spectacle. Not this time, Elara said gently. But we'll bring you straight back afterward, and you can tell him everything. Harry accepted this with good grace, turning his attention back to his birthday celebrations. The sanctuary had prepared his favorites, treacle tart and homemade ice cream that changed flavors with each bite. As he blew out the 11 candles on his cake, he made a silent wish, that Hogwarts would feel like home, just as the sanctuary did. Later that night, Harry sat on his favorite cliffside perch with Fawkes beside him. The ancient phoenix had stayed after delivering the letter, seemingly aware of the significance of this milestone. I'm excited but nervous too, Harry confided, stroking Fawkes's warm feathers. What if I don't fit in? I've never really been around other kids before. Fawkes trilled softly, the musical notes conveying reassurance that transcended language. Yeah, I know. Be myself and all that. Harry grinned. But myself is pretty weird compared to normal wizarding kids. The phoenix bumped his head against Harry's shoulder affectionately, as if to say that weird wasn't a bad thing to be. Dumbledore says my parents would be proud, Harry continued, voicing the thoughts that had been circling in his mind all day. Do you think that's true? Even though I'm not growing up like they planned? Fawkes's answer was a short melody that Harry had learned to recognize over the years, the phoenix's interpretation of absolute certainty. Harry smiled, comforted by the bird's confidence. He gazed out over the sanctuary valley, memorizing the view of his childhood home. Tomorrow would bring his first real step into the wider wizarding world, and everything would change. The leaky cauldron fell silent the moment Harry stepped through the door. Conversations halted mid-sentence, drinks paused halfway to lips, and every head turned toward the entrance where Harry stood flanked by Elara and Thorn. For an excruciating moment, nobody moved. Then the whispers started, rippling through the pub like wildfire. It's Harry Potter. The boy who lived. Where's he been all these years? Look at his scar. Harry felt his face heating up under the collective stare of dozens of strangers. He instinctively reached for his magic, drawing it around himself like a protective cloak as Kai had taught him, not visible, but a mental barrier against the wave of curiosity, awe, and in some cases, suspicion that radiated from the crowd. Thorn placed a steadying hand on Harry's shoulder. Eyes forward, chin up, he murmured. You've faced down Death Eaters. You can handle a pub full of nosy wizards. Before anyone could approach them, an enormous figure pushed through from the back of the room. There ya are, boomed a voice that seemed too big even for the giant of a man it belonged to. Right on time. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, towered over everyone in the pub, his wild beard and hair framing a face split by a broad smile. Blimey, Harry! Hagrid exclaimed, looking down at him with beetle-black eyes shining with emotion. Last time I saw ya was just a tiny thing. Look at ya now. He turned to address the gawking crowd. All right, nothing to see here. Just young Harry getting his school things, like any other Hogwarts student. The gentle giant's intervention broke the spell. People began approaching in ones and twos, introducing themselves and welcoming Harry to the wizarding world. Harry shook hands politely, overwhelmed but managing to maintain his composure. A pale wizard in a purple turban hung back, watching the scene with an unreadable expression. When their eyes met, Harry felt a strange prickle in his scar. Before he could wonder about it, Hagrid was ushering their group toward the back exit. That's Professor Quirrell, Hagrid explained as they walked. He'll be your defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts. Brilliant mind, but nervous fella. Been different since he took a year off to get some practical experience. Ran into vampires in the Black Forest, they say. In the small courtyard behind the pub, Hagrid tapped a particular brick with his pink umbrella. The wall rearranged itself, bricks sliding apart to reveal the bustling thoroughfare of Diagon Alley. Harry's jaw dropped. Despite all the magical wonders he'd grown up with, nothing had prepared him for this, a street packed with witches and wizards in colorful robes, shops selling everything from cauldrons to racing brooms, and magic performed openly on all sides. First stop, Gringotts, Hagrid announced. You'll need money for your supplies. As they made their way through the crowd, Harry noticed people stopping to stare, nudging their companions and pointing. The attention made his skin crawl, but he focused on Hagrid's broad back ahead of him and kept walking. The imposing white marble building of Gringotts loomed ahead, goblins standing guard at the entrance. Harry had met a few goblins who occasionally visited the sanctuary on financial business, but never so many at once. The Potter Vault is quite deep, Elara explained as they entered the vast marble hall. Your parents left you well provided for. One wild cart ride later, Harry stared in amazement at mounds of gold, silver, and bronze coins piled high in Vault 687. This is all mine, he whispered. Every canute, Thorn confirmed. James came from old money, and both your parents were smart with investments. Harry filled a pouch with coins, feeling strange about taking money he hadn't earned. Growing up in the sanctuary's communal environment hadn't prepared him for concepts like personal wealth. Back on the surface, they split up to make their shopping more efficient. Hagrid went to run a mysterious errand for Dumbledore, while Elara took Harry to Madame Malkin's for robes and Thorn headed to the apothecary for potions ingredients. Hogwarts, dear? Asked Madame Malkin when they entered her shop. Got the lot here. Another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a pale, blond boy stood on a footstool while a second which pinned up his long black robes. He had a pointed face and a bored, superior expression that immediately put Harry on guard. "Hello," the boy said as Harry climbed onto the stool beside him. "Hogwarts too?" "Yeah," Harry replied, submitting to Madame Malkin's measuring tape, which floated around him of its own accord. "My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands," the boy drawled. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry raised an eyebrow, already disliking this boy who reminded him of the entitled young phoenixes who sometimes visited the sanctuary, all preening and no substance. "You fly?" the boy asked. Harry shrugged noncommittally. "Sometimes. I'm quite good myself. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say, I agree." The boy's eyes narrowed suddenly. "Say, who are your people?" "I don't recognize you." "My people?" "Your family. They are our kind, aren't they?" Harry's eyes narrowed. "If you mean are they magical, then yes. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same, they've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter, imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families." Before Harry could respond, and he was considering responding with a small demonstration of phoenix fire, Madame Malkin announced, "That's you done, my dear." Glad for the excuse to end the conversation, Harry hopped down from the stool. "See you at Hogwarts, I guess," he said to the blond boy, not entirely sincerely. Outside, he found Alara waiting with several packages. "Everything all right?" she asked, noting his expression. "Just met a real prat," Harry muttered. "Going on about our kind and old wizarding families." Alara's expression softened. "You'll meet all sorts at Hogwarts, Harry. Some with views you'll find distasteful. It's an opportunity to practice patience. Or to practice turning them into toads," Harry suggested with a half-smile. "That's advanced transfiguration, well beyond first year," she replied dryly. "Come on, we're meeting Thorn at Flourish and Blots." The bookshop was Harry's favorite stop. While Alara collected his required textbooks, Harry explored the shelves, adding several extras to his pile, advanced defensive magic texts that caught his eye, and a comprehensive guide to magical creatures that might help him explain phoenix behaviors to his future classmates. Their final and most anticipated stop was Ollivander's. The narrow, shabby shop looked unimpressive from outside, but Harry felt the magic thrumming within as soon as they crossed the threshold. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by weak sunlight filtering through grimy windows. "Good afternoon," said a soft voice. Harry jumped as an old man with wide, pale eyes like moons stepped out from between the towering shelves of wand boxes. "Hello," Harry said awkwardly. "Ah yes," the man said. Yes. I thought I'd be seeing you soon. Harry Potter." It wasn't a question. "You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work." Mr. Ollivander moved closer, and Harry resisted the urge to step back. There was something unsettling about those silvery eyes. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand. 11 inches. Pliable. A little more power and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I say your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where. Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long, white finger. "I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it," he said softly. 13½ inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do. He shook his head and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Elara and Thorn. Elara Flammel. How interesting. Cherry wood, 12 inches, with a core of. He paused, his eyes widening slightly. Phoenix feather. Freely given, if I recall correctly. Elara nodded. You have an excellent memory, Mr. Ollivander. I remember every wand I've ever sold. His gaze shifted to Thorn. And Thorn Nightshade. Blackthorn, 10.5 inches, dragon heartstring. Unyielding. A wand for a warrior. Thorn inclined his head without comment. Well now, Mr. Potter. Ollivander turned back to Harry. Let me see. He pulled a long tape measure with silver markings out of his pocket. Which is your wand arm? I'm right-handed, Harry said, but I usually cast with both hands. Ollivander raised a bushy eyebrow. Ambidextrous casting? Unusual in one so young. Hold out your right arm, please. As the tape measure worked independently, measuring everything from Harry's arm length to the distance between his nostrils, Ollivander flitted around the shelves, taking down boxes. Every Ollivander wand has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, dragon heartstrings, and phoenix feathers. At the mention of phoenixes, he gave Harry a penetrating look. No two Ollivander wands are the same, just as no two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. The measuring tape crumpled to the floor, and Ollivander returned with an armful of boxes. Right then, Mr. Potter. Try this one. Beechwood and dragon heartstring. 9 inches. Nice and flexible. Harry took the wand, but before he could wave it, Ollivander snatched it back. No, no, here, ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Harry had barely touched it when it was replaced with another. Maple and phoenix feather. 7 inches. Quite whippy. As the pile of rejected wands grew higher, Harry grew more confident rather than less. He understood from Kai's teachings that finding a perfect wand match was a delicate process, especially for someone with unusual magical affinity like himself. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. Ollivander paused suddenly, a strange expression crossing his face. I wonder, yes, why not? Unusual combination, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. The moment Harry's fingers closed around the wand, he felt a sudden warmth spreading from his hand up his arm. It wasn't the familiar heat of phoenix fire, but something different, a resonance, a recognition. He raised the wand and brought it swishing down through the dusty air. A stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end, casting dancing spots of light on the walls. Elara and Thorn applauded, but Ollivander's reaction was strange. Curious. Very curious. He murmured, placing the wand back in its box and wrapping it in brown paper. Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Harry felt a chill. Voldemort's wand contained a feather from the same phoenix. The very same, Ollivander confirmed, unperturbed by Harry's use of the name. Yes, 13.5 inches. You. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chooses the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. As they left the shop, Harry turned to his guardians. The phoenix who gave the feathers, Fawkes, Elara confirmed quietly. Dumbledore told us years ago. It's one reason he believed so strongly in your connection to phoenix magic. Harry stared down at his wrapped wand package, feeling both awed and unsettled. The brother wand of Voldemort's had chosen him. What did that mean? His thoughts were interrupted by Hagrid's booming voice. "Harry! Got ya a birthday present." The giant was beaming, holding a cage containing a beautiful snowy owl who regarded Harry with amber eyes that somehow reminded him of Pip's intelligent gaze. "Hagrid, you didn't have to, I wanted to," Hagrid insisted. "Probably not used to phoenixes, are ya? Every wizard needs a proper post owl." Touched, Harry accepted the cage. "She's beautiful." "Thank you. What will you name her?" Elara asked as they headed back toward the leaky cauldron. Harry studied the owl's dignified bearing and knowing eyes. "Hedwig," he decided. "I read about her in A History of Magic. She was a medieval witch who protected orphan children." Thorn clapped his shoulder approvingly. "Fitting." Their return through the leaky cauldron drew less attention this time, to Harry's relief. As they prepared to apparate back to the sanctuary's outer boundary, Hagrid handed Harry an envelope. "Your ticket fare Hogwarts," he explained. "1st September, King's Cross Station. Platform 9 3/4. Everything's on your ticket. Any problems, send me an owl." "Thank you for everything, Hagrid," Harry said sincerely. "I'm looking forward to seeing you at Hogwarts." "Ah, you're welcome," Hagrid replied, looking emotional. "Your parents would be proud, Harry. Real proud." With a final wave, Harry and his guardians apparat away, leaving the bustle of London behind for the peaceful sanctuary that had been Harry's home for nearly 9 years. The remaining summer weeks passed in a flurry of preparation. Harry devoured his textbooks, particularly fascinated by transfiguration and defense against the dark arts. Thorn tested him daily on defensive spells, while Elara worked with him on controlling his phoenix-influenced magic in a school environment. "Remember," she cautioned repeatedly, "most wizards cannot produce elemental fire. It would be best not to display that ability unless absolutely necessary." Harry understood the concern. His upbringing among phoenixes had given him abilities most young wizards couldn't comprehend, much less replicate. Standing out even more than his famous scar already ensured wasn't something he desired. The evening before his departure, Harry sat in the sanctuary's council chamber with the entire staff. Dumbledore had arrived earlier in the day to discuss final arrangements and now joined them for Harry's send-off dinner. "The Hogwarts Express remains the best way for you to reach school," the headmaster explained. "Not only is it tradition, but it provides a valuable opportunity to begin forming friendships before arriving." Harry nodded, secretly nervous about the prospect of spending hours on a train with complete strangers. "Will anyone know about?" He gestured vaguely around the sanctuary. "Your specific upbringing remains confidential," Dumbledore assured him. "The official record states only that you were raised by guardian wizards in a secure location following your parents' murder. The existence of the Phoenix Sanctuary is known to very few in the wizarding world, and we intend to keep it that way." "What about my magic?" Harry asked. "It doesn't always work like normal wizard magic. Professor McGonagall and a few other key staff members have been informed that your magical education has been unconventional. They will assist if you have difficulties adjusting to standard casting techniques." After dinner, Harry packed his trunk with Elara's help. His textbooks, robes, and personal items were neatly arranged, along with a few special treasures, a phoenix feather freely given by Pip, a focusing stone from Kai, and a small photo album of his sanctuary family. "What if I can't make friends?" Harry asked suddenly, voicing the fear that had been growing as his departure neared. "I've never really been around other kids before." Elara smiled gently. "You've spent your life surrounded by temperamental phoenixes. Human children will be easy by comparison." Harry laughed, but his anxiety remained. "What if they only care about me being the boy who lived?" "Then they aren't the friends you're looking for," Elara said simply. "The right people will see you for who you are, not what you're famous for." Later that night, Harry made his rounds of the sanctuary, saying goodbye to his Phoenix friends. The hardest farewell was with Pip, who had been his constant companion for years. "I wish you could come with me," Harry said, stroking the Phoenix's gleaming feathers. Pip trilled sadly but encouragingly. I know. You can visit during holidays." Harry sighed. "And it's not like Hogwarts is a Phoenix-free zone. Fawkes will be there." Fawkes, who would travel separately with Dumbledore, gave an affirmative trill from his perch nearby. When Harry finally climbed into bed, sleep eluded him. Tomorrow would begin a new chapter of his life, one that would take him away from the only home he'd known since toddlerhood and into a world where he was famous for something he couldn't even remember. King's Cross Station bustled with morning commuters when Harry arrived with Thorn and Elara. Pushing a trolley loaded with his trunk and Hedwig's cage, Harry drew curious glances from Muggle travelers. "Platform 9 3/4 is this way," Thorn said, leading them between platforms 9 and 10. "You need to walk straight at the barrier between the platforms. Don't stop and don't be scared you'll crash into it." Harry nodded, having heard about the hidden platform. "Do you want me to go first?" "We'll go together," Elara decided, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Ready?" Harry took a deep breath and pushed his trolley forward. As the barrier approached, he fought the instinctive urge to close his eyes or flinch. Then, suddenly, they were through, emerging onto a platform where a scarlet steam engine waited beside a platform packed with witches and wizards seeing their children onto the train. "Wow," Harry breathed, taking in the magical chaos. Cats of every color wound between legs, owls hooted to one another, and the air was filled with excited chatter about spells, houses, and summer adventures. Thorn helped Harry lift his trunk onto the train and into an empty compartment. Then came the moment Harry had been dreading, saying goodbye. "Remember what we practiced," Elara said, straightening his collar needlessly. "If your magic feels overwhelming, center myself, focus on my breathing, and visualize a calm flame," Harry recited. "I know. And if anyone gives you trouble," Thorn began. "Use words first, hexes never," Harry finished with a grin. "I'll be fine." "We know you will." Elara pulled him into a tight hug. "We're so proud of you, Harry." Thorn ruffled his hair affectionately. "Write to us tonight after the sorting. We've got a pool going on which house you'll be in." "Who bet on what?" Harry asked curiously. "Marika says Ravenclaw because of your bookishness. Kai insists Gryffindor due to your inherent Phoenix nobility or some such nonsense. I put my money on Hufflepuff." "Hufflepuff?" Harry raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Loyalty," Thorn said simply. "No one's more loyal than a Phoenix-raised kid." The warning whistle blew, and final goodbyes were exchanged in a rush. Harry hung out the window, waving until his guardians disappeared from view as the train rounded a bend. Then, with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, he settled into his seat for the journey to Hogwarts. He wasn't alone for long. The compartment door slid open to reveal a tall, lanky boy with flaming red hair and a face full of freckles. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." "Go ahead," Harry invited. The boy sat down, glancing at Harry before quickly looking out the window, as if trying not to stare. "I'm Ron, by the way." "Ron Weasley." "Harry Potter." Ron gaped. "Are you really? I mean, do you have the—" He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry lifted his fringe to show the lightning scar. "Wicked," Ron breathed. "So that's where you know who." "Yeah," Harry confirmed, "but I don't remember it." "Nothing?" Ron asked eagerly. "Just a lot of green light," Harry admitted. "But that's it." Ron stared at him for a moment, then seemed to realize what he was doing and quickly looked away. "Sorry, didn't mean to gawk. My brothers told me you'd be on the train, but I thought they were having me on." "It's okay," Harry assured him, genuinely not bothered by Ron's straightforward curiosity. It was refreshing after the whispers and pointing in Diagon Alley. They were soon deep in conversation about wizard families, Hogwarts houses, and Quidditch. Harry found Ron easy to talk to, especially after the redhead treated him to a sharing of assorted wizard sweets from the trolley. When Ron mentioned his pet rat Scabbers, Harry carefully introduced Hedwig. "Beautiful owl," Ron commented. "My family's got Errol, but he's ancient. Mostly crashes into windows these days." Around midday, their compartment door slid open again. A round-faced boy looked in tearfully. "Sorry, but have you seen a toad at all?" When they shook their heads, he wailed, "I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me." "He'll turn up," Harry reassured him. "What's your name?" "Neville Longbottom," the boy sniffled. Harry perked up. "Longbottom? I've read about your family." Neville looked surprised. "You have? My guardians taught me about the families who fought against Voldemort." Harry ignored Ron's and Neville's flinches at the name. The Longbottoms were really brave. Neville blushed crimson. "That was my parents, not me. Gran says I'm not much like them." "I bet you are more than you think," Harry said kindly. Before Neville could respond, a girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth appeared behind him. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "Neville's lost one. We've just been talking about it," Harry explained. "No sign of him yet." The girl wasn't listening. She was staring at Harry's forehead. "Holy cricket, you're Harry Potter. I've read all about you. You're in Modern Magical History and The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century. Am I?" Harry asked, genuinely surprised. He knew he was famous, of course, but being in history books was another level entirely. "I'm Hermione Granger," she continued breathlessly. "And you are?" She turned to Ron. "Ron Weasley," he muttered through a mouthful of chocolate frog. "Pleasure," Hermione said perfunctorily before turning back to Harry. "Do you know what house you'll be in?" "I've been asking around, and Gryffindor sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we'd better go look for Neville's toad. You two had better change into your robes. I expect we'll be arriving soon." With that whirlwind pronouncement, she left, taking the dejected Neville with her. "Whatever house she's in, I hope I'm not in it," Ron declared, tossing his wand back into his trunk. "Mental, that one." They changed into their school robes as the train continued northward. Darkness fell, and mountains and forests rolled past the window under a deep purple sky. A voice echoed through the train, "We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately." Harry's stomach lurched with nerves as he and Ron joined the crowd in the corridor. The train slowed and finally stopped, and students pushed their way onto a tiny, dark platform. Then a familiar lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard Hagrid's voice, "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. "Come on, follow me, any more Fur's years? Mind your step, now. Fur's years follow me." Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down a steep, narrow path. Nobody spoke much. Neville sniffed once or twice. "Y'all get your Fur's sight Hogwarts in a sec," Hagrid called over his shoulder, "just round this bend here." There was a loud boo-hoo, as the narrow path opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. "No more and 4 to a boat," Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were joined in their boat by Neville and Hermione. "Everyone in," shouted Hagrid, who had a boat to himself. Right then, forward. The fleet of little boats moved off all at once, gliding across the smooth surface of the lake. Everyone was silent, staring up at the great castle above. As they sailed closer, Harry felt a strange sensation, like the castle itself was examining him. The stone walls seemed to hum with ancient magic that resonated with the phoenix fire in his blood. It felt like a welcome. The boats carried them through a curtain of ivy into a dark tunnel, which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle until they reached an underground harbor. They clambered out onto rocks and pebbles, then followed Hagrid's lamp up a passageway in the rock, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there, her stern face somehow immediately communicating that this was not someone to cross. "The Fur's years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She pulled the door wide, revealing an entrance hall so big it could have fit the entire Phoenix Sanctuary's main compound inside. Stone walls were lit with flaming torches, and a magnificent marble staircase facing them led to the upper floors. Professor McGonagall led them across the flagged stone floor. Harry could hear the drone of hundreds of voices from a doorway to the right. The rest of the school must already be here, but McGonagall showed the first years into a small, empty chamber off the hall. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she said. "The start of term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses." As she explained the house system, Harry thought about where he might belong. Kai had insisted his phoenix nature made him a natural Gryffindor, but Harry wasn't convinced. He valued knowledge like a Ravenclaw, worked hard like a Hufflepuff, and could be cunning when necessary like a Slytherin. "The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school," Professor McGonagall concluded. "I shall return when we are ready for you. Please wait quietly." She left the chamber, and immediately whispers broke out. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" Harry asked Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry wasn't worried about pain. He'd experienced Phoenix Burning Day ceremonies, which involved actual fire, but he did wonder what kind of test it might be. Before he could speculate further, something happened that made him jump about a foot in the air. Several people behind him screamed. "What the?" he gasped. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall. Pearly white and slightly transparent, they glided across the room talking to one another, hardly glancing at the first years. They seemed to be arguing. "Forgive and forget, I say," said a fat little monk. "We ought to give him a second chance, my dear friar. Haven't we given Peeves all the chances he deserves?" replied a ghost wearing a ruff and tights. "He gives us all a bad name, and you know, he's not really even a ghost. I say, what are you all doing here?" "New students," said the fat friar, smiling around at them. "About to be sorted, I suppose." A few people nodded mutely. "Hope to see you in Hufflepuff," said the friar. "My old house, you know." "Move along now," said a sharp voice. "The sorting ceremony is about to start." Professor McGonagall had returned. One by one, the ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. "Form a line," Professor McGonagall told the first years, "and follow me." Harry got into line behind a sandy-haired boy, with Ron behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the Great Hall. Harry had read about this room in Hogwarts, a history, but the reality far exceeded the description. Thousands of candles floated midair over 4 long tables where the rest of the students were sitting. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall led the first years up to this table, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Dotted here and there among the students, the ghosts shone misty silver. Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He'd read that it was bewitched to look like the sky outside. It reminded him of nights spent watching stars from the sanctuary's highest cliffs. He quickly looked down again as Professor McGonagall silently placed a four-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put a pointed wizard's hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched. A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. Harry listened with fascination as the hat described the qualities of each house. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and then became quite still again. "So we've just got to try on the hat," Ron whispered to Harry. "I'll kill Fred," he was going on about wrestling a troll. Professor McGonagall stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. "Abbott, Hannah." A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of line, put on the hat, which fell right down over her eyes, and sat down. After a moment's pause, "Hufflepuff," shouted the hat. Harry watched as, one by one, the first years were sorted. Hermione Granger became a Gryffindor, to Ron's evident dismay, as did Neville Longbottom after nearly a full minute under the hat. The pale blonde boy from Madame Malkin's, Draco Malfoy, apparently, was immediately declared a Slytherin. Then, at last, "Potter, Harry." As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and what's this? Ah, raised among phoenixes. How extraordinarily rare." Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, not just any phoenixes. Fawkes chose me. Fawkes. Dumbledore's companion. Curiouser and curiouser. No wonder I sense such unusual magic in you. Phoenix fire runs in your veins alongside wizard blood, a combination I haven't seen in centuries. Harry waited nervously as the hat continued its assessment. "You would do well in any house, you know. Slytherin could help you achieve greatness, there's ambition there, and a certain disregard for rules that need breaking. Ravenclaw would nurture that quick mind. Hufflepuff would support your deep capacity for loyalty. And Gryffindor, well, phoenixes are creatures of valor and light. I just want to belong somewhere," Harry thought. "Ah, but that's the key, isn't it? Where will you truly belong? Better be Gryffindor." Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table, where he was greeted by the loudest cheer yet. Percy the prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" As Harry sat down, he caught sight of Dumbledore at the high table. The headmaster raised his goblet slightly in Harry's direction, his eyes twinkling. Beside him, Harry spotted Fawkes perched regally on a golden stand, the phoenix's brilliant plumage drawing admiring glances from students and staff alike. When Ron was sorted into Gryffindor moments later and joined Harry at the table, Harry felt the first real sense that perhaps he could indeed find a home at Hogwarts, just as he had at the sanctuary. Harry's first week at Hogwarts was a whirlwind of new experiences. Getting lost in the castle's ever-changing layout, dodging Peeves the poltergeist, and adjusting to classes filled his days. But the biggest challenge was managing the constant whispers and stares that followed him everywhere. "There, look." "Where?" "Next to the tall kid with the red hair. Wearing the glasses. Did you see his face? Did you see his scar?" People queued outside classrooms just to get a glimpse of him. The attention made Harry deeply uncomfortable. He was used to the peaceful sanctuary where everyone treated him normally. His unusual upbringing became apparent in subtle ways. During their first charms lesson, Professor Flitwick was demonstrating the proper wand movement for a simple levitation charm when Harry asked, "But why do we need to move the wand at all if our intention is clear?" The tiny professor nearly fell off his stack of books. "An excellent theoretical question, Mr. Potter. While advanced wizards can sometimes perform simple charms with minimal movement, the gestures help direct and focus magical energy for beginners." Later, in herbology, Harry showed an intuitive understanding of magical plants that surprised Professor Sprout. When handling fire seeds, he cupped them in his palm without the protective gloves everyone else wore. "Mr. Potter." Sprout gasped. "Put your gloves on immediately. Fire seeds burn at over 200 degrees. "Oh, sorry," Harry said sheepishly, quickly donning the gloves while hiding the fact that heat barely affected him after years of handling Phoenix fire. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall proved even more revealing. While other students struggled to turn matches into needles, Harry accomplished it on his first try, but using a completely unorthodox technique. "Mr. Potter," McGonagall said, studying his perfect needle with a raised eyebrow, "you didn't use the incantation or wand movement I demonstrated." "Sorry, Professor," Harry replied awkwardly. "I just visualized the match's essence changing from wood to metal while maintaining its shape but sharpening one end and creating an eye in the other." The class stared at him. McGonagall's lips thinned. "Please see me after class, Mr. Potter." When the other students had left, McGonagall gestured for Harry to sit. "Professor Dumbledore informed me about your unconventional magical education, but I didn't realize quite how differently you've learned to cast." Harry fidgeted nervously. "Have I done something wrong?" "Not wrong, precisely," she said carefully. "Just unusual. Most young wizards require structured incantations and movements to channel magic properly. Your intuitive approach is typically seen only in much older, experienced wizards, and even then, rarely with such precision." "It's how I was taught at the sanctuary," Harry explained. "Magic by intention and visualization rather than rigid formula." McGonagall nodded thoughtfully. "I see. While I appreciate your natural talent, Mr. Potter, I must ask that you at least attempt the standard methods in class. Your classmates need to learn the foundations properly." "Yes, Professor." "That said," she added, her expression softening slightly, "I would be interested in seeing more of your alternative techniques in private lessons, if you're amenable." Harry brightened. "Really? Indeed. Your approach to transfiguration is fascinating and may yield insights for magical theory research. Shall we say Thursday evenings at 7? Potions proved to be Harry's most difficult subject, not because he lacked aptitude, but because Professor Snape seemed to hate him on sight. "Ah, yes," Snape said softly during the first class roll call, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his Slytherin friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class, his black eyes cold and empty. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began in barely more than a whisper. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." Silence followed this little speech. Harry exchanged looks with Ron, while Hermione Granger was on the edge of her seat, looking desperate to prove she wasn't a dunderhead. "Potter," said Snape suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry frowned, thinking. This wasn't in the first-year textbook, but Alara had taught him some advanced potions theory. "The draught of living death, sir," he answered. "It's a powerful sleeping potion." Snape's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat," Harry replied promptly. "It's an antidote for most poisons." What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, sir. Also called aconite. Snape's lip curled. Correct, he admitted grudgingly. Though I wonder who coached you before class. No one, sir, Harry said truthfully. My guardian Alara is a potions researcher. She taught me the basics years ago. This seemed to irritate Snape further. 1 point from Gryffindor for your cheek, Potter. Being prepared is no excuse for arrogance. As the class progressed, Harry partnered with Ron to brew a simple potion to cure boils. While Snape swept around criticizing almost everyone, he seemed to reserve particular venom for Harry, finding fault with how he crushed snake fangs. Powder them, Potter, don't pulverize them to dust, and the way he stirred, clockwise means clockwise, not whatever circular motion suits your fancy. By the end of the lesson, Gryffindor had lost several points, and Harry was convinced that Snape's hatred went beyond normal teacher-student friction. Cheer up, Ron said as they climbed the steps from the dungeon. Snape's always taking points off Fred and George. Can I come and meet Hagrid with you? Harry had received an invitation to visit the gamekeeper that afternoon. At 5 to 3, they left the castle and made their way across the grounds to Hagrid's small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. When Harry knocked, they heard frantic scrabbling from inside and several booming barks. Then Hagrid's voice rang out, saying, "Back, Fong, back." Hagrid's big, hairy face appeared in the crack as he pulled the door open. "Hang on," he said. "Back, Fong." He let them in, struggling to keep a hold on the collar of an enormous black boarhound. The inside was a single room, with hams and pheasants hanging from the ceiling, a copper kettle boiling on the open fire, and a massive bed with a patchwork quilt in one corner. "Make yourselves at home," said Hagrid, letting go of Fong, who bounded straight at Ron and started licking his ears. "This is Ron," Harry told Hagrid, who was pouring boiling water into a large teapot and putting rock cakes onto a plate. "Another Weasley, said Hagrid, glancing at Ron's freckles. "I spent half me life chasin' your twin brothers away from the forest." The rock cakes were shapeless lumps that nearly broke their teeth, but Harry and Ron pretended to enjoy them as they told Hagrid all about their first lessons. "How are your guardians?" Hagrid asked Harry. "Alara still workin' on that Phoenix Tears project?" Harry nodded eagerly. "She thinks they might have application beyond healing wounds, something about purifying dark magic contamination." "Brilliant woman," Hagrid said appreciatively. "And how's Thorn?" "Still as paranoid as ever." "He prefers vigilant," Harry laughed. "But yeah. Made me practice shield charms for 3 hours straight the day before I left, just in case." As they chatted, Harry noticed a cutting from the Daily Prophet lying on the table. The headline caught his eye, "Gringotts break-in latest." He picked it up and read about an attempted robbery at the Wizarding Bank on July 31st, his birthday, the same day he'd been there with Hagrid. The article mentioned that nothing was taken, as the vault in question had been emptied earlier that day. "Hagrid," said Harry. "This Gringotts break-in happened on my birthday. It might have been happening while we were there." Hagrid definitely didn't meet Harry's eyes. He grunted and offered him another rock cake. As Harry and Ron walked back to the castle for dinner, Harry thought about the article. Hagrid had emptied Vault 713, taking out that grubby little package. Had that been what the thieves were looking for? The mystery of the Gringotts break-in was pushed from Harry's mind the following week when a notice appeared in the Gryffindor common room announcing that flying lessons would begin on Thursday, with the Slytherins. "Typical," said Harry darkly. "Just what I always wanted. To make a fool of myself on a broomstick in front of Malfoy." "You don't know that you'll make a fool of yourself," said Ron reasonably. "Anyway, I know Malfoy's always going on about how good he is at Quidditch, but I bet that's all talk." Harry didn't respond. What he couldn't explain to Ron was that he wasn't worried about flying itself. He'd been literally flying with phoenixes since he was a toddler. His concern was that his unusual flying instincts might draw unwanted attention. Malfoy certainly did talk about flying a lot. He complained loudly about first years never getting on the house Quidditch teams and told long, boastful stories that always seemed to end with him narrowly escaping muggles in helicopters. At breakfast on Thursday, Hermione Granger bored them all with flying tips she'd gotten from a library book called Quidditch Through the Ages. Only Neville hung on to her every word, desperate for anything that might help him stay on his broom. Everyone else was relieved when Hermione's lecture was interrupted by the mail arrival. Harry hadn't had any mail since Hagrid's note, but today Hedwig swooped in, delivering a letter from the sanctuary. He tore it open eagerly. "Dear Harry, congratulations on Gryffindor. Kai is unbearably smug about winning the betting pool. Thorn grumbled for days about predictable Phoenix influence. We're delighted to hear about your first few days, though not surprised that Professor Snape is proving difficult. He and your father had a complicated history that, unfortunately, he seems unwilling to set aside. Professor McGonagall's offer of special lessons is excellent news. She's one of Britain's finest transfiguration masters. About your scar hurting when you looked at Professor Quirrell, this concerns us. The scar is a cursed wound and may react to certain types of magic. Pay attention to when it happens and keep us informed. If it worsens, speak to Dumbledore immediately. Pip misses you terribly. He keeps flying to your room and trilling sadly. We've promised he can deliver your Christmas package personally. Remember what we taught you about controlling Phoenix fire. Standard wand work may feel restrictive, but it's important you master traditional casting methods alongside your natural abilities. All our love, Elara and Thorn P.S. Fawkes says hello. He visited briefly yesterday during one of Dumbledore's meetings with the Ministry. Harry smiled at the letter, suddenly homesick for the sanctuary. The feeling intensified when, at 3:30 that afternoon, he and the other Gryffindors hurried down the front steps onto the grounds for their first flying lesson. It was a clear, breezy day. The grass rippled under their feet as they marched down the sloping lawns toward a smooth, flat lawn on the opposite side of the grounds from the Forbidden Forest. The Slytherins were already there, as were 20 broomsticks lying in neat lines on the ground. Harry had heard Fred and George Weasley complain about the school brooms, saying that some of them vibrated if you flew too high, or always flew slightly to the left. Their teacher, Madame Hooch, arrived shortly. She had short, grey hair, and yellow eyes like a hawk. "Well, what are you all waiting for?" she barked. "Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up." Harry glanced down at his broom. It was old and some of the twigs stuck out at odd angles. "Stick out your right hand over your broom," called Madame Hooch at the front, "and say, 'Up.'" "Up," everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, one of the very few that did. Hermione Granger's had simply rolled over on the ground, and Neville's hadn't moved at all. Madame Hooch then showed them how to mount their brooms without sliding off the end, and walked up and down the rows correcting their grips. Harry was delighted when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard," said Madame Hooch. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy and frightened of being left on the ground, pushed off hard before the whistle had touched Madame Hooch's lips. "Come back, boy," she shouted, but Neville was rising straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle, 12 feet, 20 feet. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom and, Harry acted instinctively. As Neville began to fall, Harry kicked hard off the ground, leaning forward to gain speed. Years of flying with phoenixes had given him an instinctive understanding of air currents and aerodynamics. He streaked upward like an arrow, calculating Neville's falling trajectory. The wind rushed through his hair as he accelerated, the ground falling away below. This felt nothing like phoenix flight, it was more mechanical, less intuitive, but his body adjusted instantly. Just as Neville passed the 15-foot mark in his fall, Harry caught up, grabbing the larger boy's wrist. The sudden weight nearly pulled Harry from his broom, but he compensated by shifting his center of gravity, using techniques Fawkes had taught him for carrying heavier objects during flight. He couldn't stop their descent completely, but he managed to slow it enough that when they hit the ground, they rolled instead of crashed, with Harry taking the brunt of the impact. Harry Potter. Madame Hooch's voice cut through the stunned silence that had fallen over the class. For a terrifying moment, Harry thought he was in trouble. Then, that was the most spectacular piece of flying I've ever seen from a first year. How in Merlin's name did you manage it? Before Harry could answer, Professor McGonagall came running toward them. Potter. Longbottom. Are you hurt? Neville whimpered, holding up his wrist which was beginning to swell. I think I sprained it when we landed. Madam Hooch, please take Mr. Longbottom to the hospital wing, McGonagall instructed. Then, fixing Harry with an intense stare, Potter, come with me. Harry's heart sank. Was he going to be expelled for flying without permission? He followed McGonagall back into the castle, up staircases and down corridors until she stopped outside a classroom. She opened the door and poked her head inside. Excuse me, Professor Flitwick, could I borrow Wood for a moment? Wood? Harry wondered. Was this some kind of cane for punishment? But Wood turned out to be a person, a burly fifth-year boy who came out of Flitwick's class looking confused. Potter, this is Oliver Wood, McGonagall introduced. Wood, I found you a seeker. Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. Are you serious, Professor? Absolutely, said McGonagall crisply. The boy's a natural. I've never seen anything like it. Was that your first time on a broomstick, Potter? Harry nodded silently, not mentioning his experience flying with phoenixes. He caught a falling boy from a 50-foot plummet without a scratch, Professor McGonagall told Wood. Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it. Wood looked as though all his dreams had come true at once. Ever seen a game of Quidditch, Potter? He asked excitedly. Wood's captain of the Gryffindor team, Professor McGonagall explained. He's just the build for a seeker, too, said Wood, now walking around Harry and staring at him. Light, speedy, we'll have to get him a decent broom, Professor, a Nimbus 2000 or a Clean Sweep 7, I'd say. I shall speak to Professor Dumbledore and see if we can't bend the first-year rule. Heaven knows, we need a better team than last year. Flattened in that last match by Slytherin, I couldn't look Severus Snape in the face for weeks. Professor McGonagall peered sternly over her glasses at Harry. I want to hear you're training hard, Potter, or I may change my mind about punishing you for unauthorized flying. Then she suddenly smiled. Your father would have been proud, she said. He was an excellent Quidditch player himself. You're joking. It was dinner time, and Harry had just finished telling Ron what had happened after he'd left the grounds with Professor McGonagall. Seeker. Ron said, awestruck. But first years never, you must be the youngest house player in, about a century, said Harry, digging into his shepherd's pie. Wood told me. Ron was so amazed he just sat and gaped at Harry. I start training next week, Harry continued. Only don't tell anyone, Wood wants to keep it a secret. Fred and George Weasley now came into the hall, spotted Harry, and hurried over. Well done, said George in a low voice. Wood told us. We're on the team too, beaters. I tell you, we're going to win that Quidditch Cup for sure this year, said Fred. We haven't won since Charlie left, but this year's team is going to be brilliant. You must be good, Harry, Wood was almost skipping when he told us. Anyway, we've got to go, Lee Jordan reckons he's found a new secret passageway out of the school. Bet it's that one behind the statue of Gregory the Smarmy that we found in our first week. See you. Fred and George had hardly disappeared when Malfoy showed up, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. Having a last meal, Potter? When are you getting the train back to your guardians? You're a lot braver now that you're back on the ground and you've got your little friends with you, said Harry coolly. I'd take you on any time on my own, said Malfoy. Tonight, if you want. Wizard's Duel. Wands only, no contact. What's the matter? Never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose. Of course he has, said Ron, wheeling around. I'm his second, who's yours? Malfoy looked at Crabbe and Goyle, sizing them up. Crabbe, he said. Midnight all right? We'll meet you in the trophy room. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Start the next chapter of the story. Chapter 4, Embers rising. The summer sun blazed over the hidden valley of the Phoenix Sanctuary as Harry soared through the air, his laughter echoing against the ancient stone cliffs. He wasn't on a broom, he was riding the thermal currents alongside Fawkes, his arms stretched wide as if they were wings. Silvery threads of magic connected them, allowing Harry to experience flight through his bonded Phoenix's senses. Higher! Harry called, and Fawkes trilled in response, banking sharply upward. At 12 years old, Harry's connection to Phoenix magic had deepened considerably after his confrontation with Voldemort. The Phoenix fire inside him had awakened fully, and he spent his summer days honing his abilities under the watchful eyes of his guardians. When they finally landed on a sun-warmed rock overlooking the valley, Harry's face was flushed with exhilaration. That was brilliant. I could feel everything, the wind currents, the heat pockets, even that hawk 3 miles east. Fawkes settled beside him, his crimson and gold plumage gleaming in the sunlight. The Phoenix nudged Harry's hand affectionately. I know. Back to lessons, Harry sighed, running his fingers through his perpetually messy black hair. The lightning-shaped scar on his forehead seemed to shimmer with an inner light, a remnant of the magic unleashed during his encounter with Quirrell. Harry made his way down the winding path toward the collection of stone buildings nestled in the valley floor. The sanctuary was home to not only dozens of phoenixes but also a small community of caretakers, witches and wizards dedicated to protecting the magical creatures and studying their unique powers. Elara Flamel waited for him in the central courtyard, her silver-streaked auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid. At nearly 130 years old, though she appeared no older than 50 thanks to her uncle Nicholas's alchemical knowledge, Elara had raised Harry since Fawkes brought him to the sanctuary as a toddler. Your fire manifestation is improving, she noted with a smile. But you're still projecting too broadly. Phoenix fire requires precision. Harry nodded, his green eyes bright with determination. I almost maintained the flame shield for 5 minutes yesterday. And nearly set my workshop on fire in the process, called a deep voice from behind them. Thorn Nightshade emerged from one of the buildings, his scarred face breaking into a rare grin. The former Auror had been teaching Harry defensive magic since he was 7 years old. That was one time, Harry protested, but he couldn't help smiling. Your Hogwarts letter arrived this morning, Elara said, handing him an envelope bearing the familiar crest. Along with several letters from your friends. Harry eagerly took the small stack. Letters from Ron, Hermione, and even Neville had become his lifeline to the world outside the sanctuary during summer break. After spending his first 11 years hidden away, the adjustment to Hogwarts had been challenging but exhilarating. Also, Thorn added more seriously, Dumbledore sent word. He'll be visiting tomorrow. Harry's expression grew thoughtful. His relationship with Dumbledore was complex. The old wizard had initially opposed Fawkes's decision to bring Harry to the sanctuary, concerned about ancient protections tied to Harry living with the Dursleys. But the unbreakable bond between Phoenix and boy had ultimately forced Dumbledore to compromise, allowing Harry to be raised in the sanctuary while establishing additional magical protections around the valley. Did he say why? Harry asked. Elara and Thorn exchanged glances. No, Elara said carefully. But after what happened with the Philosopher's Stone, I imagine there's much to discuss. Harry nodded, remembering how his confrontation with Voldemort had left more questions than answers. His Phoenix-influenced magic had reacted violently when touching Quirrell, burning the possessed professor to ash while causing Harry's scar to erupt with golden flame. Go read your letters, Thorn suggested, ruffling Harry's hair. Then we'll work on your wandless shields. Harry headed to his favorite reading spot, a small alcove in the cliffside filled with cushions and overlooking the entire valley. As he settled in, a small phoenix fledgling named Pip fluttered down to join him, nestling against his side. Harry absently stroked the young bird's feathers while opening Ron's letter first. "Harry, Dad's going mental about some inspection at work, but guess what? Fred and George reckon they can borrow Dad's flying car and come rescue you from that bird sanctuary if you want to visit the burrow. Mum doesn't know yet, but I bet she'd be thrilled to have you. She keeps saying you're too skinny and needs feeding up. Did you hear about the Chudley Cannon's new seeker? Complete disaster in the friendly against the Falcons last week. Anyway, write back soon and let us know if you can visit. Hermione's been sending me homework reminders all summer. Complete nightmare, that one. Ron P.S. Scabbers has been acting weird lately. Keeps hiding and barely eats. Percy says he's just getting old, but I dunno." Harry grinned at Ron's letter before moving on to Hermione's much neater handwriting. "Dear Harry, I hope your summer studies are going well. Have you started on Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration reading list? I've already compiled additional notes on cross-species transformations that I think you'll find fascinating given your unique connection to phoenixes. My parents are taking me to France next week. I've been learning basic French phrases and researching magical sites we might visit. Did you know the French magical community has a completely different approach to wand lore? I wonder if that might explain some of the unusual properties of your magic. I've been thinking about what happened with the stone. The headmaster wouldn't explain exactly what occurred between you and Professor Quirrell, but I've been researching Phoenix lore and found something interesting about rebirth magic that might be relevant. We should discuss when term starts. Write soon. Love from Hermione." Harry smiled at Hermione's predictable academic enthusiasm before turning to his Hogwarts letter. Along with the standard book list, he was surprised to find a personal note from Professor McGonagall. "Mr. Potter, given the unique nature of your magical education prior to Hogwarts, I would like to continue our special transfiguration sessions this coming term. Your ability to visualize magical transformations shows remarkable potential, though your technique remains unconventional. Also, Madam Hooch has asked me to inform you that the Gryffindor Quidditch team will require a new seeker, and based on your flying abilities, despite your unorthodox methods, she suggests you consider trying out. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall." Harry set the letters aside, thinking about his first year at Hogwarts. He'd initially struggled to use a wand after years of channeling magic through his connection with Fawkes. Where other students focused on precise wand movements, Harry's magic responded more to intention and emotion, a trait that frustrated some professors like Snape but fascinated others like Flitwick. His thoughts were interrupted by Kai Chen, who climbed up to join him in the alcove. The wandcrafter was the newest addition to the sanctuary's small staff, having arrived from China just 3 years earlier to study the magical properties of phoenix feathers freely given. "Your magic is restless today," Kai observed, sitting cross-legged beside Harry. At 42, Kai carried himself with serene confidence, his keen eyes missing nothing. "I can feel it from across the valley." Harry nodded. "It's been like that since I came back from Hogwarts. Like something's awakening." "Show me," Kai said simply. Harry extended his hand, palm up, and closed his eyes. He focused on the warm current of magic flowing through him, not forcing it, but inviting it forward as Kai had taught him. A small flame appeared above his palm, golden with streaks of crimson, dancing and twisting into shapes, a phoenix, a stag, a lily flower. "Fascinating," Kai murmured. "Your magic is telling stories. The phoenix is clear, but these other forms." "My parents," Harry said quietly. "I've been dreaming about them." Kai nodded thoughtfully. "The confrontation with the dark wizard stirred ancient magic in your blood. Phoenix fire illuminates what was hidden." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a smooth, polished stone. "I finished this for you." Harry accepted the stone, which immediately warmed in his hand. It was oval-shaped, about the size of a large egg, with swirls of red, orange, and gold that seemed to move beneath its surface. "A focusing stone," Kai explained. carved from the bedrock beneath the oldest phoenix nesting ground in the sanctuary. It should help you direct your fire with more precision. Thanks, Harry said, genuinely touched. He'd been struggling to control the intensity of his phoenix fire, which tended to flare dangerously with his emotions. Now, Kai said, rising smoothly to his feet, I believe Thorn is waiting for you. And tonight, we should prepare for Dumbledore's visit. Harry pocketed the stone and followed Kai down to the training area, a circular space surrounded by fire-resistant stone walls. Thorn was already there, setting up practice dummies. Today, Thorn announced, we work on combining defensive and offensive magic simultaneously. Harry nodded, excited. This was his favorite kind of training. In a real fight, Thorn continued, pacing around Harry, you won't have time to cast a shield and then attack. You must do both at once, or you'll be dead before you finish your first spell. Harry took his position in the center of the circle. He drew his wand, 11 inches of holly with a phoenix feather core, gifted by Ollivander during his first visit to Diagon Alley last summer. Though he could perform many spells without it, Hogwarts education required wand use, and Alara had insisted he learn both methods. Ready? Thorn asked. Harry nodded, dropping into a defensive stance. Without warning, Thorn fired a barrage of stinging hexes. Harry's reflexes, honed by years of flying alongside phoenixes, allowed him to sidestep the first volley while simultaneously casting Protego against the second. The shield shimmered with an unusual golden hue, a characteristic of Harry's spellwork. As he maintained the shield, Harry reached for the newly awakened fire within him. With his free hand, he projected a controlled burst of phoenix fire that split into 3 flaming projectiles, each homing in on a different training dummy. The dummies erupted in flames, but instead of burning to ash, they absorbed the fire, their enchanted surfaces glowing red as they animated and began advancing on Harry. Good. Thorn called. Now contain and neutralize. Harry spun in place, his shield expanding outward in a dome as he switched from offensive fire to a containment spell Alara had taught him. Golden rings of magic encircled each dummy, constricting and suppressing the animated objects until they froze in place. Excellent control, Thorn approved. But you're still relying too much on raw power instead of precision. Harry lowered his wand, breathing heavily. It's hard to hold back. Especially since the Quirrell incident, Thorn finished for him. I know. That's why we practice. They continued training until sunset, when Alara called them in for dinner. The communal dining hall was one of Harry's favorite places in the sanctuary, a warm space with high ceilings where humans and phoenixes gathered together. Several of the magnificent birds perched on special roosts near the skylights, occasionally swooping down to share food or simply observe the conversation. Kai and Alara were already seated, along with the sanctuary's other residents, Marika, the herbologist who maintained the magical gardens, the Sharma twins, who specialized in phoenix healing magic, and old Gregorovic, a retired wandmaker who had come to study phoenix feathers in his final years. As Harry took his seat, Fawkes flew down to perch beside him, sharing his plate as was their custom. The phoenix selected choice morsels with delicate precision, trilling appreciatively at particularly spicy bites. You've improved remarkably this summer, Alara commented as she passed Harry a basket of bread. Your control over elemental fire is approaching mastery level. Still can't manage a proper flame travel though, Harry said, slightly frustrated. The ability to disappear and reappear in a burst of flame, the phoenix's most famous ability, remained elusive. You're 12, Thorn reminded him dryly. Most wizards twice your age couldn't produce a single spark of phoenix fire. Dumbledore arrives at noon tomorrow, Alara announced, changing the subject. He's bringing news about the Ministry's latest position on, she glanced at Harry, certain matters. Harry knew what she meant. After his reappearance in the wizarding world last year, the Ministry of Magic had renewed their demands to have greater oversight regarding his upbringing. Minister Fudge had been particularly insistent on regular inspections of the sanctuary, which Elara and the others fiercely opposed. "Will I have to go back to Hogwarts early?" Harry asked. "No," Elara assured him. "You have 3 more weeks of summer." But Dumbledore mentioned something about arrangements for next summer. "Apparently, to maintain certain protective magic, you may need to spend at least some time with your blood relatives." Harry's expression darkened. "The Dursleys? But I barely remember them." "We don't have details yet," Thorn interjected. "Let's hear what Dumbledore has to say before jumping to conclusions." After dinner, Harry retreated to his room, a circular chamber built into the cliffside with a large window overlooking the valley. Unlike the dormitories at Hogwarts, his room here was designed with Phoenix companions in mind. Several perches of varying heights were positioned near heat sources, and a large nest-like structure occupied one corner where Fawkes and occasionally other phoenixes would rest. The walls were lined with bookshelves containing an eclectic collection, magical theory texts alongside Muggle adventure novels that Elara thought would appeal to a young boy. Photos and drawings decorated the spaces between shelves, Harry riding on Fawkes's back, Harry with Elara and Thorn beside a mountain lake, and most recently, Harry with Ron and Hermione at Hogwarts, all 3 laughing as snow fell around them. Harry pulled out his summer homework, an essay on the properties of moonstone for potions. Unlike many of his classmates, Harry actually enjoyed potions as a subject, though his relationship with Professor Snape was tense at best. His upbringing had given him an intuitive understanding of magical ingredients, but Snape seemed determined to find fault with everything Harry did. As he worked on his essay, Harry's thoughts drifted to the coming school year. His first year had been a whirlwind of adjustments, learning to navigate not just regular classes but also his unexpected fame. Students had stared and whispered, especially during those first weeks, and Harry had retreated into himself until Ron and Hermione broke through his defenses. The Sorting Hat had been particularly confused by Harry, commenting that his mind showed traits of all 4 houses in unusual measure. "Raised by phoenixes, I see," the Hat had murmured in his mind. "Loyalty of a Hufflepuff, mind of a Ravenclaw, ambition of a Slytherin, but with the heart, yes, better be Gryffindor." Harry's unique upbringing had manifested in other ways throughout the year. While other students struggled with their first flying lessons, Harry had mastered broom flight within minutes, his body instinctively understanding flight dynamics from years of riding air currents with Fawkes. Professor Flitwick had been astounded by Harry's innate grasp of levitation charms, while Professor McGonagall had taken special interest in his unusual approach to transfiguration. But it was the encounter with Quirrell and Voldemort that had truly revealed how different Harry's magic had become. When the possessed professor had tried to touch him, Harry's skin had erupted in golden flames that spread to consume Quirrell entirely. Dumbledore had later explained that Lily Potter's sacrificial protection was responsible, but Harry and his sanctuary family suspected the Phoenix magic had amplified the protection in unexpected ways. A soft trill interrupted his thoughts. Fawkes had returned, bringing with him a small burst of warming magic that filled the room with comfort. "What do you think Dumbledore wants?" Harry asked the Phoenix, setting aside his essay. Fawkes tilted his head, his intelligent eyes regarding Harry carefully before he flew to a perch near the window. The Phoenix began to sing softly, not the powerful, magic-laden song he used in times of need, but a gentler melody that nevertheless carried meaning Harry had learned to interpret over years of companionship. "You think it's about Voldemort," Harry surmised. "About what happened with the stone." Fawkes dipped his head in what appeared to be agreement. Harry sighed and moved to sit by the window, gazing out at the stars appearing above the sanctuary. The magical protection surrounding the valley created an unusual shimmer in the night sky, as if the stars themselves were slightly magnified. "I felt him, Fawkes," Harry said quietly. "When my scar burned, it wasn't just pain. It was like something inside me recognized something in him." Fawkes glided down to land on Harry's knee, pressing his warm feathered head against Harry's chest in a gesture of comfort and protection. "Elara says my scar is more than just a mark," Harry continued. "She thinks Voldemort left something behind that night. Something dark." The Phoenix trilled softly, the sound somehow both sad and determined. Yeah, Harry agreed, understanding the sentiment behind the Phoenix's song. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. With that comforting thought, Harry returned to his homework, working late into the night until he finally fell asleep at his desk. Fawkes gently covered him with a wing, the Phoenix's warming magic ensuring Harry wouldn't catch cold. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Harry woke early, as was his habit, and joined Kai for their daily meditation session at sunrise. They sat on a high ledge overlooking the eastern edge of the valley, watching as the first golden rays spilled over the mountains. Clear your mind, Kai instructed, his voice calm and steady. Feel the boundary between your magic and the world around you. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. Under Kai's guidance, he had learned to sense the magical currents that flowed through all living things, particularly strong in the phoenixes that inhabited the sanctuary. Now, extend your awareness, Kai continued. Not just to what is, but to what might be. This was a new instruction, and Harry's brow furrowed in concentration. He reached out with his magical senses, feeling the familiar patterns of the sanctuary, the warm, bright signatures of the phoenixes, the steady, grounded presence of the humans, the ancient, slow pulse of the valley itself. But today, something felt different. At the very edge of his perception, Harry sensed a disturbance, a ripple in the magical fabric that surrounded the sanctuary. His eyes snapped open. Something's coming. Kai nodded, unsurprised. Yes. Not Dumbledore, his arrival would feel different. This is unfamiliar. They descended quickly to warn the others. By the time they reached the main compound, Thorn was already organizing defenses, his aura training evident in his efficient commands. Perimeter wards are holding, he reported when he saw Harry and Kai. But something's testing them, probing for weaknesses. Elara emerged from her workshop, a complex magical instrument in her hands. It's not human, she announced, studying the device's readings. The magical signature is bestial, but corrupted somehow. Harry felt a familiar prickle of heat in his scar, not painful, but a clear warning. Voldemort, he said with certainty. Or something connected to him. The adults exchanged concerned glances. Fawkes appeared in a flash of flame, landing on Harry's shoulder and letting out a piercing cry that alerted every phoenix in the valley. Dozens of the magnificent birds took to the air, forming a protective circle above the sanctuary. Harry, stay in the central compound, Thorn instructed, drawing his wand. Elara, activate the secondary wards. Kai, with me, will investigate. But Harry shook his head. My scar's reacting to whatever's out there. I should come with you. Absolutely not, Elara began, but Fawkes interrupted with a trill that clearly indicated agreement with Harry. The Phoenix thinks he should go, Kai noted. And in matters of dark magic, their instincts are rarely wrong. Thorn scowled but nodded reluctantly. Stay behind us. At the first sign of real danger, you return immediately, no arguments. They set out toward the eastern boundary of the sanctuary, where the wards were being probed. Harry felt the strange sensation in his scar intensify as they approached, a warm tingling that wasn't quite pain but suggested recognition. The boundary wards were visible now, shimmering barriers of golden light strengthened by centuries of phoenix magic. Beyond them, at the forest edge, something moved in the shadows. There, Kai whispered, pointing to a disturbance among the trees. A creature emerged into the morning light, serpentine and massive, its scales a poisonous green. It slithered along the ward boundary, occasionally pressing against the magical barrier, which sizzled and sparked at the contact. A basilisk, Thorn breathed, his face pale. But they're extinct in Britain. Harry stared at the enormous snake, feeling a strange pull toward it. The creature turned its massive head, and Harry instinctively closed his eyes, remembering from his magical creature's lessons that a basilisk's gaze meant death. But something even stranger happened, the snake began to speak. I smell the boy, the master seeks the boy. Harry's eyes flew open in shock. It's talking. What? Thorn looked at him sharply. What do you mean? The snake, it said something about seeking a boy. Harry took a step forward, despite Thorn's restraining hand. It's looking for me. Elara had joined them now, her face grave. Harry, can you understand what it's saying? Harry nodded slowly, confused by their reactions. Can't you? No, Kai said quietly. You're speaking Parseltongue, the language of snakes. It's extremely rare. The implications hit Harry like a physical blow. Voldemort could speak to snakes too, he whispered, remembering stories Dumbledore had shared during one of his visits to the sanctuary. The basilisk continued prowling along the boundary, its massive body leaving a trail of withered vegetation. Break the barriers, find the boy, kill the firebirds. Harry felt a surge of protective rage. Without thinking, he stepped forward and hissed back, leave this place. The basilisk reared up in surprise, its enormous head rising 15 feet in the air. A speaker? You are not my master. Who is your master? Harry demanded, ignoring Thorn's attempts to pull him back. The air commands me, the basilisk replied. The air of Slytherin awakens me once more. Fawkes launched from Harry's shoulder with a battle cry that echoed through the valley. Dozens of phoenixes responded, converging on their position in streams of fire. The basilisk recoiled from the approaching phoenixes, clearly wary of them. Tell your master, Harry called out, feeling phoenix fire rising within him, that this place is protected. The fire burst forth from Harry's hands without conscious thought, not the controlled, focused flames of his practice sessions, but wild, protective magic fueled by his connection to the sanctuary. Golden fire spread along the ward boundaries, reinforcing them with pulsing energy that caused the basilisk to retreat further. This isn't over, the serpent hissed before slithering back into the forest shadows. The chamber is opened. The air will find you. As the basilisk disappeared, Harry felt his knees buckle. The enormous expenditure of magic left him drained, and Thorn barely caught him before he hit the ground. That, Thorn said grimly, was not a coincidence. Elara knelt beside Harry, her expression worried as she checked him over. We need to get him back. And someone needs to alert Dumbledore immediately. Fawkes reappeared, landing beside them and trilling urgently. No need, said a calm voice from behind them. I'm already here. They turned to find Albus Dumbledore standing there, his blue eyes taking in the scene with grave concern. His usual twinkling demeanor was absent, replaced by the focused intensity of a powerful wizard ready for battle. Harry, he said softly, it appears we have much to discuss. Back at the main compound, Harry sat wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat, his body still recovering from the magical exertion. Dumbledore sat across from him, while Elara, Thorn, and Kai stood nearby, all wearing expressions of concern. A basilisk, Dumbledore mused, stroking his long beard. And you understood it, Harry? Harry nodded, still shaken. It said something about the chamber being opened, and an air, the air of Slytherin. Dumbledore's expression grew even more serious. The Chamber of Secrets is believed to be a myth, a hidden chamber within Hogwarts, supposedly created by Salazar Slytherin before he left the school. Legend says it contains a monster that only the heir of Slytherin can control. A basilisk would fit that description, Elara noted. But how could it travel from Hogwarts to here? And why? I believe, Dumbledore said slowly, that this was a magical projection, not the actual basilisk, but a manifestation sent to locate Harry. He turned to Harry. The connection between you and Voldemort may have allowed this creature to sense your general location, though the sanctuary's protections prevented it from finding you precisely. But why? Harry asked. What does the Chamber of Secrets have to do with me? That, Dumbledore said, is what concerns me most. If the chamber has indeed been opened at Hogwarts, it suggests that Voldemort, or someone acting on his behalf, has found another way to infiltrate the school. Harry felt a chill despite the warming magic of the phoenixes gathered around them. The basilisk said the master seeks the boy. Is Voldemort looking for me specifically? It would appear so, Dumbledore confirmed. Which brings me to the purpose of my visit today. He reached into his robes and removed a small, leather-bound book. This journal belonged to your mother, Harry. Lily was particularly gifted in protective charms, an expertise she apparently developed after learning she was a target of Voldemort. He handed the journal to Harry, who accepted it with trembling hands. My mother's? Yes. I believe it contains insights that may help us understand the protection she placed on you, protection that appears to have been amplified by your unusual upbringing among phoenixes. Harry ran his fingers over the cover, feeling a connection to the mother he barely remembered. There's something else, Dumbledore continued. The events at the end of last term, with Professor Quirrell and the Philosopher's Stone, revealed something unexpected about your scar. Harry looked up. What about it? When Voldemort's spirit fled from Quirrell's body, our instruments in the castle detected a magical resonance between his essence and your scar. I believe that when he tried to kill you as an infant, the rebounding curse may have created a connection between you. What kind of connection? Thorn asked sharply. That remains unclear, Dumbledore admitted. But it may explain Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue, a talent Voldemort was known for. Elara stepped forward, her expression fierce. Are you suggesting that Harry has some part of Voldemort inside him? Dumbledore hesitated. I have theories, but no certainties. What I do know is that Harry's phoenix-influenced magic seems to be fighting against whatever dark residue remains in that scar. The golden flames we witnessed last year, and again today, suggest that phoenix magic is naturally opposed to this darkness. Fawkes trilled softly, rubbing his head against Harry's cheek in obvious affection and protection. Which brings me to my proposal, Dumbledore continued. I believe Harry should continue his dual education, Hogwarts during the school year and the sanctuary during summers. But we must add specific training focused on understanding and controlling this connection to Voldemort. I've been having dreams, Harry admitted suddenly. Since the thing with Quirrell. Dreams about corridors and doors. And sometimes I hear whispering in a language I didn't know was Parseltongue. Dumbledore nodded gravely. The connection appears to be growing stronger, which makes our preparation all the more urgent. They spent the next several hours discussing arrangements for Harry's return to Hogwarts, with special provisions for emergency communication with the sanctuary. Dumbledore also revealed that he had brought someone with him, a specialist in mind magic who could teach Harry to protect his thoughts from outside influence. Severus Snape has extensive experience in occlumency, Dumbledore explained, ignoring the immediate protests from Thorn and Elara. Despite your difficult relationship, he is uniquely qualified to help you shield your mind. Snape hates me, Harry pointed out bluntly. He's made that pretty clear. Professor Snape, Dumbledore corrected gently, has complex feelings regarding your father. But he has agreed to provide these lessons, and I ask that you approach them with an open mind. Harry wasn't thrilled with the idea, but he nodded reluctantly. After everything that had happened, he understood the stakes too well to refuse useful training, even from Snape. As the afternoon wore on, Harry found himself growing restless. While the adults continued their discussions, he slipped away with Fawkes to his favorite cliffside perch. The events of the morning had left him with too many questions and not enough answers. He opened his mother's journal, carefully turning the pages filled with her neat handwriting. Most entries focused on complex charm theory, but occasionally more personal notes appeared. October 15, 1981. James thinks I'm being paranoid, but I've reinforced the protective charms again. The Fidelius should be enough, but something doesn't feel right. I've been researching ancient blood protections, magic considered too primal for modern use, but these aren't normal times. If something happens to us, Harry must survive. There's a ritual described in the Peveril text that binds protective magic to blood and sacrifice. It's dangerous, but as a last resort. Harry felt a lump in his throat as he read his mother's words, written just weeks before her death. He turned the page, finding detailed notes on the ritual she'd mentioned, with annotations in her increasingly urgent handwriting. A soft trilling from Fawkes drew his attention. The phoenix was watching him with understanding eyes, offering comfort through their bond. She knew, Harry whispered. She was preparing for what might happen. Fawkes nodded, his intelligent gaze communicating what words couldn't. Harry continued reading, finding a passage that made him catch his breath. I've considered every possibility, even the unthinkable, that Voldemort might leave some taint, some darkness in Harry if his spell rebounds. The ancient texts mention cleansing rituals, but the most powerful purification comes from phoenix tears and flame. If the worst happens, Fawkes may be Harry's best hope for purging any darkness left behind. Harry looked up at his phoenix companion with new understanding. Is that why you chose me? You knew I had something dark inside me that needed healing? Fawkes trilled softly, pressing his head against Harry's scar. A single pearly tear formed in the phoenix's eye and dropped onto the lightning-shaped mark. Harry felt a warm sensation spread from the point of contact, not removing the scar, but somehow easing the constant background hum of its presence that Harry had lived with for so long. Thank you, he whispered. Later that evening, after Dumbledore had departed with promises to coordinate Harry's additional training, the sanctuary held a council meeting. All the adult caretakers gathered in the circular stone chamber that served as their meeting room, with Harry included despite his youth, a recognition that the matters at hand concerned him directly. The basilisk's appearance changes everything, Thorn argued. If Voldemort can track Harry through their connection, perhaps Hogwarts isn't safe. Nowhere is completely safe, Elara countered. But Hogwarts has protections nearly as ancient and powerful as our own. And now that we're aware of the threat, we can prepare accordingly. Harry needs to learn to control this connection, Kai added quietly. That can only happen by facing it, not by hiding. Harry, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. I want to go back to Hogwarts. When everyone turned to look at him, he continued more confidently. Ron and Hermione are there. And I can't hide forever. If Voldemort wants to find me, he'll find a way, whether I'm at Hogwarts or here or anywhere else. The boy has wisdom, Gregorovic commented, speaking for the first time that evening. The elderly wandmaker rarely participated in sanctuary affairs, but his expertise in magical theory was respected by all. Phoenix-chosen wizards cannot run from destiny. They must fly to meet it. Fawkes, who had been perched near the ceiling, swooped down to land on Harry's shoulder, voicing his agreement with a musical trill that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the chamber. Then it's decided, Elara said with a sigh. Harry returns to Hogwarts as planned. But with additional precautions. She turned to Harry. You'll take Pip with you. Harry blinked in surprise. Pip, the young phoenix fledgling who had bonded with him over the summer, was barely old enough to flame travel short distances. But Phoenix Sanctuary rules, make exceptions in extraordinary circumstances, Elara finished for him. Pip has chosen you as his companion, just as Fawkes did years ago. Having a phoenix with you at Hogwarts will provide both protection and a direct connection to us in emergencies. Thorn nodded in agreement. And I've spoken with Dumbledore about reinstating my old Auror credentials so I can serve as an additional security consultant at Hogwarts this year. I'll be there at least once a week. What about the basilisk? Harry asked. If it's really at Hogwarts. Phoenixes are natural enemies of basilisks, Kai explained. Their tears are the only known cure for basilisk venom, and they're immune to the killing gaze. With Pip and Fawkes both watching over you, you'll have powerful allies against such a creature. The meeting continued late into the night, with detailed plans made for Harry's return to school. Despite the gravity of the situation, Harry felt a growing sense of determination. Whatever challenges awaited at Hogwarts, he would face them with his unique abilities and the support of both his worlds. The next morning, Harry resumed his training with renewed purpose. Thorn pushed him harder than ever in defensive magic, while Kai focused on helping Harry harness his phoenix fire with greater precision. Elara began teaching him more advanced protective charms from his mother's journal. 3 days before his return to Hogwarts, Harry received an unexpected owl from Ron. "Harry, Dad got tickets to the Quidditch World Cup final. Ireland versus Bulgaria. Can you believe it? We're heading to London tomorrow and staying at the Leaky Cauldron until term starts. Please say you can meet us there. Dad can pick you up wherever you want. Hermione's coming too." Ron. After discussing it with his guardians, it was agreed that Harry would join his friends for the final days before term. Thorn would accompany him to London as an extra precaution. On his last night at the sanctuary, Harry stood on the highest cliff overlooking the valley, Fawkes and Pip beside him. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson that matched the phoenix's plumage. "I'm scared," Harry admitted quietly to his companions. "Not of the basilisk or even Voldemort, but of what's inside me. This connection. This darkness." Fawkes trilled softly, nudging Harry's hand. Pip, still learning to communicate, copied the older phoenix's gesture with enthusiastic affection. Harry smiled despite his worries. "Yeah, I know. Not alone." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the focusing stone Kai had given him, watching as it caught the last rays of sunlight and seemed to glow from within. The stone had become an essential tool in his training, helping him channel and direct his phoenix fire with increasing precision. With a deep breath, Harry extended his hand and summoned the golden flames that had become his signature magic. The fire danced across his palm, neither burning nor consuming but illuminating with warm, living light. With careful concentration, he shaped the flames into a miniature phoenix that soared around him in spirals before dissipating into sparks. "Whatever comes," he promised himself, "I'll be ready." As darkness fell over the sanctuary, Harry returned to the main compound for a farewell feast. Tomorrow would bring new challenges at Hogwarts, but tonight he was home, surrounded by his unusual family and the phoenixes who had chosen him. Whatever darkness lingered in his scar, whatever connection tied him to Voldemort, Harry knew with absolute certainty that the phoenix fire within him burned brighter still. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.